incursion previously might be deterred, Iran/Hezbollah might be deterred from getting involved fully. I guess has that changed? I guess it has changed in your opinion in the last 24 hours or so.
During to the ongoing escalation for at least 12 hours now, the possibilities of Hezbollah starting a northern front have definitely increased, if not skyrocketed.
Because of the hospital, because of the hospital
No,
thing?
because of them taking out everybody from the embassies, and there seems to be some kind of a fury there, and they're increasing their bombings in certain areas, which they said they wouldn't open up, and now they have, and they're getting a green light from Iran and from another country. What do you think of that, Em?
Well, evacuating the embassies means that they are about to do something stupid or that the security
Right,
situation is
right.
deteriorating. But again, this all boils back to two options, right? Did they start this because it was just another round for them, and they wanted some political concessions, but it has gone sideways because Hamas didn't control their operations or the level of atrocities committed, more or
That
less
that
tore
seems
this playbook, or
no.
they were eschatological from the get-go, and this is it for them, and they were just waiting to see how successful Hamas would be before they take the next step. That again, that's the question. What is it? Is it just another round for them from the very beginning, or is this their it moment and they're going for it, right?
So I think the second, because if it enough money can grease the palms so that there's an assumption that it's a bait and switch, in my opinion. I don't know, Em, if you believe the same thing, but everything that I've said from the beginning, and what we've seen going on with the IRGC, with this administration, and I mean, there there was no mistaking what was going to occur if you looked at the patterns for the last 18 months to 2 years, both out of Iran and out of Qatar and Hamas and Hezbollah. I'm sorry, this is just, and Syria, what's been happening just since March, since Ramadan. It's been an escalation, and including the emboldenment of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Not to mention the anti-Semitism in a lot of spaces
Hey,
But
Stealth,
has been ramping up
really
since then too.
that is just that's just a psyop indicator. That's just a narrative builder. That's like the foundation of what they're going to do social engineering wise. That's more of a social engineering campaign. My more concern is what Em said, where there was a bait and switch between the leadership and what they're currently getting. In other words, they were paid for something, but there was a, a bigger thing going to happen that they were unaware of. I still have a very
Like involving Russia,
no,
possibly?
no, not at all. I think I'm saying the people that went in were not what you would consider classic Hamas. And I think M would agree with that. Their tactics, their training, the way that things were managed.
Hey, Stealth, real quick. Level 4, do not travel advisory from
Yes.
the U.S. Embassy in Beirut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. State Department said, yeah. So I don't know. M, what do you think about what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Really fast. I find this kind of concerning. You know how I've been following all of the channels on Telegram? They just open up a new one for everyone, and they're all promoting it, and it's literally just calls to protest in all of these different areas. And it's called Al-Aqsa Flood Events. Okay. And they're posting for protests. I mean, you know, in Jerusalem, in Beirut, in it says Ibish Rush Roundabout, the Gamal. I can't even pronounce these. Gamal Abdel Nasser Square. Like they're calling for protests tomorrow at 1 p.m. It's going to be all around. I found that interesting. I don't know if you want to comment on that, M, as well.
I don't like to bring up personal experiences. However, this looks oddly familiar to the call to protest prior, hellfire hitting Soleimani, and the call to protest post.
I
My apologies. Sorry, that was me. My apologies.
Go ahead. Okay. You can unmute. It's all right. So Em, I just kind of want to understand the fact why people are thinking it's just isolated and that it's not supposed to be a multi-front event.
Okay, so again, we're just me myself. I'm looking from the outside. What am I seeing, or what have I seen thus far? I saw that there was a carrier strike group that was on station to deter Serbia from doing something stupid to Kosovo. That was before the event took place, and then I saw an attack unfold on October 7th. So brutal, so criminal, and unprecedented. And then I didn't see Hezbollah move for a couple of days, and then I saw celebrations in Tehran, and then I saw inflammatory rhetoric coming out of all parties involved, and then Hezbollah started uh, acting ceremonially and not doing enough, to the extent that when Khalid Mishal or Ismail Haniyeh gave their speech, they said, well, Hezbollah has been participating, but we expect them to do more. So if I look at all this, I have two options here. The first option is that Hamas did this all by itself, and that's highly unlikely. And then the second option is that Hamas did this in a greater plan. Now, inside that scenario, that Hamas carried out this attack with coordination, and because the fact that they managed to pull this off without being detected indicates a level of state actor involvement regarding planning and regarding securing the plan and regarding telling them exactly what to do. And then there are other options. There are other observations. For instance, just the statement by the chief of the military intelligence service in Ukraine saying that Russia retasked a satellite into geostationary orbit over Israel on September 24th. I'll take his claim with a grain of salt, and I'll just add it to my list of observations here. So I have a plan that didn't leak. I have a plan that was not detected. I have a plan that was carried out to a high degree of success. And I have one state actor that came out immediately to celebrate Iran, and then one non-state actor that started skirmishes and harassments and now is threatening to fully get involved in the conflict. That tells me that either Iran wanted to control this and exact certain political concessions out of it, or that they had this planned from the get-go and they wanted this to escalate because they wanted to go for whatever prophecy they believe in or bring about the end of days in whatever eschatological realm or literature that they studied and are working actively to realize on the ground of reality. The more this escalates and the more the rhetoric goes up and the more the maximalist messaging goes up, I'm inclined to believe that we're now approaching scenario number two, if not operating within scenario number two for a couple of days now.
Okay, I want to talk about scenario number two and the escalation of it. Behind everything, unless it is an end of days prophecy, is technically money and opportunity. So you have the Saudi Arabia deal. You scare the Saudis by doing something like this. You have Egypt, which we haven't talked about what's going on with the crossing at this point, because I would like to know about that as well. Of the women and
So
children.
the opportunity here is chaos. So for years, Russia and China had been talking about the return to a multipolar world order, and that seems to be the objective, right?
Yes.
If you have enough chaos, you append the Western systems and you take them at a moment where you calculated that they had been weakened for several reasons, and now is the right time to move against them to stage a comeback for this order that you want to reestablish, right? So that will cause chaos. If you have countries, for instance, saying, "Oh, we will not trade in dollars anymore, but instead we will have bilateral agreements to settle accounts using local currencies," or "we will do this, or we'll do that, or we'll start the BRICS organization, or we'll add more countries to the BRICS," or the more countries we have and the more couples of those countries have bilateral trade agreements and bilateral trade going on, then they will have more reserves of currencies that can actually make the BRICS idea work. So the system itself right now is under attack. The leadership of the collective West, the values of the collective West, the governance systems of the collective West, as well as the financial system of the collective West. So that tells me something. If they manage to pull off enough strings to cause enough chaos across enough flashpoints, then the system as a whole comes under pressure. And if it comes under pressure, chaos will ensue. And in chaos is the opportunity, provided that you're dealing with rational decision makers who are going after the opportunity and not going after some nihilistic, end of days scenario for whatever ideological reasons they believe in. So the opportunity in the chaos will be more or less extending more control on many other regions and countries worldwide to further destabilize and weaken the collective West and the rules-based international order. So that's what I'm worried about. And in this, the opportunity is here is definitely materialistic. It's power and money.
Okay, I want to just ask you something.
Still,
Hold on. The head of the Shin Bet quit today, essentially resigned and took full responsibility, alleviating the pressure from Netanyahu. You've had 9 months of instability in the country with protests, with foreign entities funding, including from the US, Qatar, Russia, who knows where else, civil unrest to the point where it was debilitating their society, and also military entities threatening to not go to war if something occurs. You have financial industries literally trying to derail the country in order to make a change by getting rid of Netanyahu, who has been the financial foreign minister who's revolutionizing the financial state of Israel, which would make it not only independent, but a key power player who just sold for the first time probably the most valuable piece of military equipment externally from their country. And now Iran has the ability to do the same and then enrich itself. And then Iran has been making hand over fist after being financially compromised under the maximum, crunch from the last 2 years of the Trump administration. They've recouped, I don't know, is it 70 billion a week, a day, a month? How much have they been making off selling their illegal oil and slipping through the?
It's like a year. I think it's a year over. It's like $300 million per day or something, like 340 million per day, something like that.
Somebody tell me the number. I don't care about it. It's just a lot of money. So then you find out about secret backdoor talks about the JCPOA, which have totally failed. Something is not very clear here. If they're trying to remove Netanyahu, they just lost that ability by the Shin Bet saying he was in charge of the security. Now, is he a Netanyahu appointee? Does anybody know? It's Ronan. I don't know the domestic shenanigans. Ronan Bar.
I think he
Go
is. I
ahead,
think
Em.
he is a
Go ahead, Em.
So regarding the head of Shin Bet Shabak and the head of Amman taking full responsibility for what happened, there is one thing that I've always admired about the state of Israel, which is agency and individual responsibility, as well as freedom of information when it comes to defense, vis-a-vis my own country. So, for instance, 50th anniversary of 1973 Yom Kippur War, the IDF and other institutes or organizations released all possible dossiers and files, except for a few, on the event in order to allow the Israeli population to study and learn and see how governing was taking place during that crisis. So both of them stepping up and taking responsibility for what happened and issuing very strong letters that detail their position and also their full support for the current military effort until concluding the mission and waiting for commissions. It's a resignation that is quite, it's noble and it's decent, and it's important for the organization itself, because eventually what you want to protect is that you want to protect the framework, you want to protect the organization, you want to protect your personnel, and you want to make sure that whatever mistake happened doesn't happen in the future. So I actually salute them for doing this. This is the right thing to do. This is what every professional in this field worldwide would hope that their top brass would do when something goes wrong. But that aside, we're coming to a moment of reckoning. The United Nations is going through its League of Nations moment. The financial system is going through yet another crisis that requires some soul searching when it comes to some financial practices and some financial products that made the international financial system weak instead of being resilient and strong, despite the resilience it exhibited through a couple of international crises over the last 3 years. But when it comes to democracy as well as a governing model, this is a moment of reckoning for all of us, not just Israel. It's the same thing is happening in Japan, for instance, right? Where you get media outlets controlled either by South Korea or controlled by China. Now, what is the challenge here? The challenge is very simple. Property, private property ownership, and capitalism and lobbying and organizing politically and foreign direct investment and foreign interference in sovereign and domestic politics and so on and so forth. The challenge here is a counterintelligence challenge. And the challenge here is a financial intelligence challenge. You know, a lot of people will say, I want to start a media platform in country A because I want to achieve this announced set of goals. Fine. If you take it as at face value, you know that down the line, that media organization, once it is established and became built a following and has its audience, it can deliver targeted messaging to steer the political sphere inside a country, right?
Yes.
So that every single country in the Middle East has been going through that, and I wouldn't, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that, well, Israel is becoming a Middle Eastern country in a way. I mean that in the best possible way. I'm not mocking them or anything,
Yeah.
but it's just, it's over the course of time, things change, people change, perceptions change, right? Mentalities change, and therefore you get different outcomes from, you know, different times or older times. It is a challenge right now to, in order to protect democracy as it has been known for a while, is to focus on domestic and foreign influences when it comes to organizing and dark money pools in politics and other, you know, uh, buzzwords that don't make the playing field level. It's
Right.
tilted.
Very.
And it's usually tilted against the apolitical citizen who doesn't have enough resources or enough time to get involved in politics in order to defend their interests. Your interest could be that you don't want the street in front of your home widened because it will take away from the greenery in your neighborhood. That's a valid interest, right? But someone might think that, oh, we need a bigger road because that will result in better traffic flow and therefore less commuting times and less pollution, for instance, right? So they also have a reason. So right now, democracy is losing this, the town hall model, where the two voices can actually sit down together and either reach a compromise or one of them win the case for doing or canceling the project for the greater good. That's the element that we're losing. I'm using a very simple example here, but that's the element that democracies worldwide are losing right now. Look at Russian money in Europe. Look at Chinese money in Asia, right? Look at monies from everywhere in the Middle East. Look at Middle Eastern money working inside Middle Eastern countries against the interest of its population and its people to further advance the interests of one country that has more money coming from selling resources, let's say, than another country that doesn't have as much natural resources to sell and have enough money to defend itself against that influence up or conduct its own influence up inside the other country, right? And also we need a charter. Right now we need an international agreement that governs this. How far can you go financing a political group in another country? How far can you go financing a media platform in another country, right? FDI is good, traveling is good, tourism is good. I can meet with a Japanese, I can meet with an American, I can meet with an Israeli, a Brit, a Sudanese, whoever, sit down, enjoy the local cuisine, talk about history. But do I get the right, if I have enough money, to finance an operation inside their country to achieve my own interests before the interests of the indigenous population or before the citizens of this country where I'm operating, right? And I'm speaking very broadly here so as not to, you know,
Yes, I
inflame anyone
understand.
on either sides. It's
Yes.
just a block diagram of this model. This
Yeah.
model is failing right now, right in front of our eyes, and we need to just stand up and say it's failing. We need a better one, and we need a better one fast.
Really quick, stealth to your question as a point of interest. It was Naftali Bennett was prime minister who nominated Ronan Barnea, the current head of the Sinn Bet. Naftali
Yeah,
Bennett.
but I want to know this man's position, but that's
You
okay. Tell me later. It's not important now. It's okay.
you want to know what? What did you want to know? Sorry, whose position?
I want to know the mindset of this person from that agency.
Ah, okay. No, but you had asked earlier who nominated him, so it was
אבל
Naftali Bennett.
הוא
He was the prime
שמאלה,
minister.
ימינה, הוא רוצה, הוא לא רוצה. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, thank you.
אם הוא נפתלי
Pepper.
בנט, אז יותר קרוב שהוא ימינה.
That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything to me, but thank you. That's not an analysis. It's not enough. Just because who hired the person doesn't mean that person is what he is. So I need more intelligence on that in terms of
Yeah, I'll look
Thanks.
further. I'll look further into it. It could be he was an apolitical person, but I'll look into it.
Nobody's apolitical when you get to that level. I'm sorry. You have to be political to rise to
So,
that level. Yeah.
I'm sorry, may I ask
Yeah.
one
Go for
real
it. You
quick
go.
question? Um, I know from intelligence inside, and we saw this inside the Islamic Republic before we saw it come to fruition with the Saudi normalization uh, effort that was made. I was told from my sources inside the Islamic Republic that they were trying to open up space in the region, political space in the region, specifically with the Saudis. And then also when this normalization happened, I had also heard that there were attempts to try some type of normalization with the Sisi government. Can you speak to that at all?
I can actually. The Islamic Republic is pursuing a multi-pronged approach. They are engaging in diplomacy and also leading terror groups. They're engaging in diplomacy, also using proxies. They're engaging in diplomacy and launching, sabotage, terror, proxy, military operations with plausible deniability, and they are still engaging in their maximalist, hateful rhetoric. Why are they doing that? Because weakness invites aggression, and that's how they conduct statecraft. So they attacked Saudi oil installations, and the Saudis realized, oops, we don't have enough air defense assets, and we don't have enough platforms to protect our entire infrastructure against Iranian aggression. What are we going to do? So we're not going to depend on the Americans now, because MBS wanted to, realize this vision of Saudi al-Uzma, or the Great Saudi Arabia, and he had just, chopped up a journalist in a consulate. So he was a bit of a pariah there for a while before he started working on his reputation. So he went all the way to the Chinese and said, well, can you help me fix my problem with the Iranians, since they rely on you for so many things, and I'd really love to get that problem to go away. And the Chinese were like, oh, so what's in it for us? I was like, what do you want? I was like, we want the 5G network in your country. How about that? So instead of them buying Motorola equipment, or Alcatel-Lucent or Nokia Siemens networks, or whatever equipment they need for their 5G, provided that those manufacturers are working on R&D on a comparable level to what Huawei is doing, but that's not the case. It's a different scenario, another topic for another day. But eventually, he cut a deal, right? The Iranians told him, oh, okay, fine, we will have a peace for now, or truce, and the Chinese will, be the brokers. Thank you very much. We're good now. Okay. The Chinese get the 5G contract, the Saudis get their quote-unquote truce, but the Islamic Republic is operating according to dogmatic Shiite teachings. And one of their main elements that is completely different from the Sunnis is that they have the Taqiyya principle, or, to protect oneself against the aggression or the power of your enemy until you're strong enough to take them down. It's basically feigning being peaceful. It's feigning being cooperative. It's feigning being rational. All while you're just buying yourself time to develop enough resources to go after your enemy, right? It's a fight to the death. The same thing they tried to do with the government of Egypt twice. They tried to approach the government of Egypt during the Mohamed Morsi administration, the Muslim Brotherhood president, and they have been trying to establish back channels with the current administration of the government of Egypt, the Sisi administration. There is a very alarming observation here, is during his rise to power, Sisi depended on certain messaging, including leaking some of his interviews, some of the audio tapes of his interviews to a certain journalist were leaked to the internet, were leaked online. And in one of them, he tells of a dream that inspired him to pursue the presidency of Egypt. And in that dream, he's holding a sword drenched in blood while wearing an Omega watch. And don't tell me why Omega, I don't know. Stopped wearing mine ever since he said that. But no, it doesn't stop there. He is using a very sophisticated, not very sophisticated, but a very expensive operation of sock and meat puppets online to defend his policies and advance whatever he wants to do and get away with it. And it has been noticed recently that most of the meat puppet accounts those are real people who, some of them worked on his digital presidential campaign, the first one and the second one, trying to promote a narrative right now, again, according to a prophecy that tries to name Sisi himself as Al-Mahdi al-Gabir. And Al-Mahdi al-Gabir is a character that appears before the rise of Al-Mahdi. Why now? Right? That happened 24 hours ago or 36 hours ago. I have the timestamp here. I'll go back to it and check it and get it to you for you exactly. But why would one of his biggest meat puppets on the internet start pushing a narrative where you're pinning a religious character on Sisi, as this is getting blown out of proportions and getting escalated? Why are you tying him to the Iranian prophecy, right? I'm assuming that he's either completely stupid and he spent too much time reading bad stuff or doing bad stuff, or he received the
Money.
green light. He received the green light to start talking about this. Of course, they're paid, all of them.
Yeah.
Right? So do they have back channels? I don't know. Do they have back channels with the Saudis right now? Absolutely. I think the Saudis and the Emiratis, after having appeased the Iranians for so long and spent so much money on, other failed endeavors, have emerged as the biggest losers since 2011. The amount of money thrown into Libya, the amount of money thrown into Tunisia, the amount of money thrown into Yemen, the amount of money thrown into Iraq during the rise of the Islamic State, because it wasn't just organic, it was the Sunni tribes first going up in arms. The amount of money they threw in Syria, right? The amount of money they threw on lobbying, the amount of money they're throwing on sports deals and buying sports clubs and buying footballers so that they can go and play in Saudi Arabia, right? But in the most professional of terms, this is one huge clusterfuck, and at the very center of it is the Islamic Republic.
Did you mention ISIS in the connection to the Islamic Republic, or did I mishear that?
No. Talking about no.
Yeah, because that would be new to
We're
me.
talking about
I thought
Sisi.
okay.
We're talking about Sisi. So
Okay, gotcha.
So we say tachlis. So the net at this point, there's the prophecy of Gog and Magog. Obviously, you know that, right? So, and now there's a prophecy being pushed around that, it's the rising of the third temple, right? That's another thing. There's just an anti-Semitic thing that's going on, in regards to that. My concern was the false flag at Al-Aqsa that they would do to, create some, story around that. But we're way past that at this point. Not way past it, but it's marginal compared to what you're describing.
Well, the third temple is going to land from the sky on chariots of fire. I hope that happens. But whatever texts they are pursuing and trying to realize, I think it's just delusional. Eventually, again, it's two words colliding. One is based in reason, the other one is based in myth. Which will prevail? Well, the one that has aircraft carriers. That's based in reason, right? I believe in engineering. I don't believe in.
Yes.
I mean, ancient texts are cool, right?
Right.
But everyone over millennia tried to explain whatever they were going through that. But now we have science. Now we can X-ray a papyrus a papyrus roll that was burned in a volcano and read the text inside. That we have that technology and we have that insight, and we can decipher our world without getting, attracted to all sorts of prophecies on either side.
Right.
Will that happen? I hope so.
Well, we shouldn't in the Middle East. I think you would agree. In the Middle East, you shouldn't underestimate the power of religion,
Oh,
if you want to call it myth or whatever
absolutely,
it is.
100%.
However, when with both things being equal, meaning like the Israelis and the jihadists have equal motivation, then yes, the aircraft carriers win.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yes, but God inspired those. Just remember, okay.
100%. We got to meet him halfway, right? Stealth.
Always. I want to read something that just came out from Reuters. October 2023 debacle read a headline in top-selling daily Yedioth Aharonoth language meant to recall Israel's failure to anticipate a twin Egyptian and Syrian offensive in October of 1973, which eventually led then Prime Minister Golda Meir to resign. That ouster put paid to the hegemony of Meir's centre-left Labour Party. Amutz Asael, research fellow at the Shalom Hartman Institute in Jerusalem, predicted a similar fate for Netanyahu and his long dominant conservative Likud party. It doesn't matter if there's a commission, they say, of inquiry or not, or whether or not he admits fault. All that matters is what Middle Israelis think, which is that this is a fiasco and that the prime minister is responsible, said Asel told Reuters. He will go and his entire establishment along with him. An opinion poll in Ma'ariv newspaper found that 21% of Israelis want Netanyahu to remain prime minister after the war. 66% said somebody else, and 13% were undecided. Were an election held today, the poll found, Likud would lose a third of its seats, while the centrist National Unity Party of this main rival, Benny Gantz, would grow by a third, setting the latter up for top office. But Israelis do not want a ballot. They want action. And as the counteroffensive builds up to a potential ground invasion, Gantz, a former military chief, has set aside political differences to join Netanyahu in an emergency cabinet. Busy with the top brass and foreign emissaries, Netanyahu has limited his encounters with the public. Netanyahu is also yet to make any statements of personal accountability, even as his top general, defense minister, national security advisor, foreign minister, finance minister, and intelligence chiefs acknowledged failure to anticipate and prevent the worst attack on civilians in Israel's history. Israel has won vocal Western support for its counteroffensive, but however that may fade if Gaza ground invasion bogs down with rising Palestinian casualties and military losses. The war could also shred two planks of Netanyahu's foreign policy: peace with Saudi Arabia, which we've discussed, which is now on ice, allegedly, and restraining Iran, which is hailing the Hamas mini invasion as a victory for a Middle East access sworn to Israel's destruction. Military planners say the Gaza war, whose stated goal is Hamas's annihilation, could last months. Netanyahu would enjoy a political truce for the duration, Asel said. Whether the prime minister's health will endure is another question. In July, he was fitted with a pacemaker. As judicial protests surged, he will turn 74 on Saturday. So they're going with the age thing again. They've done this with Trump. This is the thing. Both of these men have a ton of energy compared to Biden, but let's focus on this age. Some commentators have suggested that rifts within the Israeli society and the degree to which they have sapped national security should be attributed more broadly than to Netanyahu alone. We forget to be brothers and go to war, Amit Segal, political analyst, said at Channel 12. Noting the scorn heaped on some cabinet ministers, Asel said fissures seemed already to be appearing within the government coalition. So they're saying, oh, you hear people in the street that are natural Likud supporters speaking about them with unequivocal hostility. The wrath is only growing to grow, and this is the apparent effort by Netanyahu to evade his own responsibility. So, there is a huge amount of people that want Netanyahu out of office because they don't see the vision that he has been trying to make when he was reforming the financial structure, which is not yet complete. If he doesn't complete that job, Israel cannot, I repeat, not ascend to a power player in that area, which some Western and non-Western countries would be fine with. And others, I really don't. The problem is I don't understand the motivation of this current administration. It's very murky, and I feel like there's. Okay, go ahead. I don't want to say something publicly that I shouldn't say, so go ahead.
So, without getting too much into the U.S. domestic politics or Israeli domestic politics, I'll speak to this from a national security perspective. Again, I'm an independent analyst. I'm ideologically promiscuous. I hate everyone. I love everyone. I look at things and I try to analyze them. I crunch numbers, right? So, in every device, medical, technological, there is an Israeli component.
Yes.
Either a chip, either a piece of software.
Yep.
So Startup Nation is not going anywhere.
Yep.
That's the first point. As long as you protect the human resources, the Startup Nation is not going anywhere. The innovation coming out of Israel is not going to stop. Provided that you protect the state, you maintain the state, whatever political decisions the state or its people decide to take going from here will define their future for sure. But it will not take away from their capability to innovate, and it will not take away from the desire to invest in that innovation. That's a given. Unless we have a black swan event that changes all this, I don't think it's happening. It's highly unlikely. That's the first point. The second point, the chief of Shambet and the chief of Amman coming out and taking full responsibility for this. When in the aftermath of 1973, there was the Agranat Commission, and they tried to find out what went wrong. and they reached a conclusion that a man was to blame because they didn't arrive at the proper assessment, despite the warnings, the clear warnings that were given. So that started an interagency feud that didn't end until 2013. There was a debate in the Israeli National Security Studies Institute, or INSS, between Zvi Zamir and Eli Zaira about what happened in 1973. And in that debate, actually, Zaira revealed that it was a special forces officer, Egyptian, who was recruited in the special forces command who actually saved Israel.
Yep.
Because there were plans for behind enemy lines helicopter drops. The original Egyptian plan called for dropping special forces using helicopters behind enemy lines, so that they would take the strategic straight path in the middle of the Sinai to prevent the Israeli reserves from reaching the second line of defense. So when that plan was betrayed, and most of the helicopters sent to drop Egyptian special forces to hold the straits and hold the path failed, the Israeli reserve armor basically managed to reach the second defense line. Had that not been the case, the Egyptians, after crossing the Suez Canal and establishing 10 to 15 kilometer bridgeheads along the eastern bank, would have developed their attack plan, moving their air defense assets or their air defense batteries from the western bank to the eastern bank to extend layered air defense protection, or what we call the air defense umbrella, to the armored and mechanized infantry on the eastern bank to advance further into the Sinai. Had that plan been realized, the Egyptians would have ended up being, or at least reclaiming, 50% of the Sinai in the first few days. That didn't happen, right? But that feud between Amman and Mossad was very, very, very bad for Israeli national security for quite some time, until it got resolved, right? So by doing this on the spot here, Shabak and Amman or Shin Bet and Amman as institutions protected themselves from repeating that mistake again and falling into another interagency feud for a foreseeable period of time, right? And that's why I think it's amazing, right? When it comes to Netanyahu himself, well, in hindsight is 2020. The decision to deploy troops away from the southern front to the territories to protect the Israeli citizens proved to be fatal. Now, they didn't expect the enemy to have the capability to study that redeployment and pinpoint the vulnerabilities, right? That's when a nation state comes to play. I'm more inclined to believe that the Russians retasked the geostationary satellite in orbit over Israel than ever, because they knew where to go. Not just that, they knew that within 10 minutes of breaching the fence, they had to go to a certain structure that was the technological brains of the fence. They went straight to the intelligence and technology hub, the one building that ran the whole thing, and there was just one soldier there. They couldn't have known this had they not been provided with proper signal intelligence showing that this building is the building that is receiving or processing or emitting the most, radio footprint or signature, and that they needed to take that one out in order to leave the IDF blind as they conduct their crime. So I'm not inclined to believe that anyone except two nation states were behind this. No group of investors, no administration, no UK, no EU, despite the pressure, despite the messaging, despite the track record, they're simply not interested in this. It creates a problem for them as big as, if not bigger, than the problem created for the state of Israel. And it comes at a very critical time where their hands are tied in Ukraine and in other flashpoints, trying to deter China from going for Taiwan, and tackling so many issues domestically and in the near abroad that they need to focus on. It's suicide. No one is going to engage in this to take out Netanyahu or take down Netanyahu just because they really want to take him down. Granted, there could have been certain, the democracy funding projects or media funding projects going on to support the protest movement in Israel. I don't know about that, but no one in their sane mind would bring about what we're dealing with today onto themselves. It's suicide. Whether or not you love Netanyahu or you agree with his policies or you want him in office or you want to eject him from office, it's suicide. It's pure, clear, simple suicide.
I'm going to let somebody else say something.
You're not convinced, but it's an interesting analysis. Also, by the way, it could have been in addition to any satellite from help from a nation state. There's obviously talk of some of the workers, many of the workers who were given work permits could have acted as both, insiders to give tips about the layouts, certainly of border communities, not necessarily of that building, as well as certain vulnerabilities in certain areas. So that can't be overlooked. Some of the Gazans who are allowed to work with legal work permits in Israel.
You might not know this, but in 1973, how big was the Sayeret Egoz unit and the Sayeret Matkal unit? Do you know those kind of numbers? Let me look it up.
Was what they were, 6 or 8 teams? I don't know. I don't have that information.
Speaking of Sayeret Matkal, I looked into the background of the head of the Shin Bet. He served in the Sayeret Matkal and then became a career Shin Bet officer and worked his way up. So I haven't been able to find any strong political opinions expressed one way or the other. But he was a Sayeret Matkal turned career Shin Bet officer, Ronen Bar.
Mm-hmm. Give me 1 second. Somebody else go for me, please.
I have noticed, I wanted to say from earlier before Em started explaining, I guess in the realm of good news, and it's been hard to find during this crisis, good news from our perspective at least. Quinnipiac just did a poll. American voters were asked whether their sympathies lie more with the Israelis or with the Palestinians. Israelis 61%, which is plus 20 from 2021. Palestinians 13%, which is 17 points down from 2021. Quote from the analysis of the poll: "This is an all-time high of voters saying their sympathies lie more with the Israelis. It's the highest since 2001." Now, unfortunately, we see some of that 10% in the pro-jihad protests across the country, but they're about 10% of the country who are even more sympathetic, let alone pro-jihad, but more sympathetic to the Palestinians.
But you know what? So in the Western democracies, it's become quite fashionable to essentially pander to that minuscule minority. And all political parties, irrespective of whether they tend to be on the left or the right, they tend to pander to this particular fringe is because they vote as a consolidated electoral vote bank. And that is what we need to change. So in Britain, for example, we, the British Indian diaspora, have organized a candle vigil meet outside the Israeli embassy on the 21st. So, if you've got friends, families, whoever, if there's people on this space, please join us, because what we need to demonstrate to the British polity and the global polity on the whole is that this is a fight between humanists and, those seeking to establish a sort of a totalitarian regime. Because without us, forming a sense of consensus and demonstrating to the polity that we all stand together against, extremism and totalitarianism, I don't think the polity of the day is going to take cognizance of this. And that is where the problem in the Western democracies essentially lie. So, I've put up I've put the poster up on the poll here. So, if anybody's got friends and family, please do, help us spread this message.
You're currently living in the UK, Adit?
That's correct. So I live in Golders Green, which is predominantly a very, very Jewish locality in North London. And that is where we saw a lot of vandalism, Jewish businesses being targeted, women who were sitting outside the cafes were being heckled by pro-Palestinian supporters. So ultimately, we had to call the riot police down. So it's been a complete nightmare.
As
And
the
I just
I
want
did
to say
read.
one thing, Dem. I think
Go ahead.
those
Go
of
ahead.
us who had extensive family members that served in the 73 war have a very different narrative of what occurred then. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And I'm sure you know that narrative. Regardless of what documents get released and what commissions occur and what transparency is alleged. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. So I think that I'm going to leave it right there. Moshe, would you go ahead?
Oh, okay. I didn't have anything particular to speak on
I just put
that.
you on the
I
spot.
was just, yeah. I was
Say
curious.
something insightful, Moshe. Say something insightful right now.
We
Okay.
lost him.
Well,
I said something and he left.
no, I'm here.
No.
Can you not hear me?
M, our regular M. Maybe he's got a call.
Oh, so somebody raised a question a few minutes ago before we came back
Wait,
in.
wait,
But
Moshe, do you speak Hebrew?
yeah, yeah.
I'm just gonna say,
Hello.
do you know the term "ani lo frayerit"?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. We lost him. Okay, go ahead.
M came back.
Yes.
So the question somebody raised, and it was an interesting one, was how did they have a number dead posted about 10 seconds after the explosion?
Oh, from the hospital?
Like you would,
exactly.
yeah, you would not have had time to dig through rubble to figure out who was where. But somehow, as soon as they announced it hit, there were 500 dead.
They just,
So
they just
that
calculated
reminded,
whatever rooms that were in the hospital, and they just use that as the number. That's how they do things.
well, it reminded me of your question earlier about their maybe cleaning up their mess so they knew what was there.
Yeah, it's possible. I think, but GP said that was not the narrative that we were going with for that at this point. So I guess for me, it's more like, what kind of tunnel operation was under that hospital, if any, and what hostages are left alive after all this. I just don't know. I mean, I would have transported them out of the country. Sorry, but through Egypt by now and paid to do that if I really wanted leverage at some point. We know they have some soldiers, don't they, or some bodies left from years, right, that we've been waiting on. I don't know what's publicly or privately known. If anybody knows, yeah, Adrian.
Buddies where? Buddies of whom?
Of soldiers that have passed
Yeah,
that they've stolen, or there's an autistic kid. There's some other people. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they've taken, and this continues to be a practice of theirs. They take IDF soldiers, they kill them, and then they return them back for 1,000 prisoner exchange. It's standard practice. I want to get back to that one strike on that hospital. It's just so perplexing. It's fog of war still, but I touched on this earlier. That type of damage could not be done with the single strike IDF payload that is provided by the Americans. We provided to them with this type of stuff we used in Syria. It does not detonate like that. The other thing we see is a PIJ or Hamas, I think it's PIJ missile rocket go up in the air for that, and that's not going to create that amount of damage. And so I keep on coming back to the belief, and we'll just have to see how this pans out, that underneath there was a significant munitions factory, and that created a secondary detonation that created that mass carnage. Shame on the Anglican Church. They knew if that is the case. They were being used as human shields, and Anglican Church. Let's remember that's the Church of England. England's got to respond here to this. It wasn't just some average church. Go ahead.
Thing is, on October 7th, I saw Hamas crossing the fence crossing into communities and killing people. A few days ago, or a day ago, they issued a statement, video statement, and they put a hostage on camera after having operated on her, right? She had an arm injury. They operated on her arm for 3 hours, according to what she said. They extended medical help for her, and then they put her on camera. Who killed people? Hamas. Who took hostages? Hamas. Who has agency here? Who took the decision to launch an attack on October 7th, targeting military installations, targeting uniformed regimental forces, then targeting unarmed civilians in their civilian communities, then taking hostages, right? Then taking dead bodies, then
And also
making videos while doing all this. Okay,
high on
they
speed
photo.
too. High on speed, which we saw in Iraq. We've seen with their militias. We saw them doing this in the streets when they're suppressing the Iranian protesters. And we say it's Hamas. We say it's Hamas, but again, it comes back to Tehran. I keep on saying it comes back to Tehran, and I think you agree with me on this, Em.
I agree, but the point I'm trying to make here is that now everyone's blaming the IDF. It wasn't the IDF that attacked civilian communities on October 7th and took hostages. It wasn't the
It was
IDF
Hamas.
that made videos doing this. It wasn't the IDF that paraded dead bodies in Gaza. It wasn't Hamas that paraded women in Gaza. It wasn't Hamas. It wasn't the IDF holding hostages on the ground. It wasn't the IDF that took the decision to go to war without extending the proper protection to its civilian population. Hamas is using its own population as a bargaining chip. Hamas's main interest is seeing more dead Palestinians because it's their playbook. I provoke an attack, the IDF retaliates, and I call it disproportionate because there is a power differential. And then I parade my own dead to the
As
world
currency,
to show the world how bad my
as
situation
an
is until
emotional
they exert enough
currency and
international. Yeah,
manipulation.
it's
It's
blackmail.
blackmail.
It's not even currency. It's blackmail. It's emotional blackmail, right? Until they deploy enough international pressure on the state of Israel to stop their military retaliation. Where does it end? You know, if it used to be a couple of rockets, it used to be an infiltration attack, it used to be an IED. Now you crossed the line. You killed 2,000
They blew up an
civilians.
entire Sbarro. I'm sorry. I remember the bus bombings. Has everybody forgotten? You couldn't go on a fucking bus in Israel. You'd prefer to walk or take a minibus. And every time you get into a taxi in Israel, you want to know if it's a Arabic Israeli or if it's the kosher cabs, But the kosher cabs can be infiltrated. What? I don't know what you're saying, but they just released a video about the 21-year-old girl, the French girl that came to party. She has a medical condition. I'm looking at tattoos on her arm from a picture. Some of the tattoos are written in Arabic. She could be Moroccan, Jewish. She could be Tunisian Jewish. She could be
Algerian, yeah,
no, she's Jewish. She's
Iraqi.
Jewish.
No, but a lot of people get
No, Jewish
Arabic
from
letter.
Jewish from Jewish from that
Yeah,
country. Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people right now get Arabic
tattoos. Yeah,
letter
no, that's
tattoos
fine.
because they think it's
Yeah,
hip,
because it's like she's got the nose piercing thing and the fillers in the lips. She's beautiful, but she has a prior health condition, and they did a surgery on her arm, which means they could have put an implant in her to blow her up if she walks away, or make her think that it's in her arm, or it could be a tracking device, or who knows what it could be, right? They could put it in her arm and then release her to Israelis and blow her up in the Israelis, right? And they released that video. The family's being interviewed from Paris. Um, I don't know what to say, but is this the first video that we have of somebody allegedly this video being released?
Yes, and it's the first one where the families consented to it being released.
But the point I was trying to make is that if there's anyone in violation of every single treaty, Geneva, the Rome Statute, you name it, it's Hamas. And now, so what? You come into my house, you come into my town, and you kill my family, and you expect me to just roll in a hole and die? not retaliate, not go after the evil that caused all this. You're basically telling me that, oh, because they managed to stage a coup, throw Palestinian Authority officials off of rooftops, seize a geographical zone, and hold its people hostage and use them as a card, and don't care about their blood. It's like our people, they are used to this. They will tolerate this. You are safe underground after having embezzled millions of dollars, right? Ismail Haniyeh is worth what, $4.3 billion,
Wow.
and that's just Ismail Haniyeh.
And
Okay,
that's what we really know. That's the number we've calculated to the best of our ability.
but
That's a
to
big number,
No,
regardless.
I
It's a
know.
big number.
But they
to
didn't they
to
kill
forget
one of
about
his
the money.
sons and his brother today, right? Allegedly. Allegedly.
Yeah,
His
most of the,
son, his son.
and his
But
brother, and his brother as
forget
well.
forget about that. Park that to
Yeah.
the side. Who has agency, right?
Yeah.
They decided to launch an attack. That's the decision. They decided to go to war. Okay, they decided to
Because
go
it
to
costs
war.
them
They
nothing
don't
except
get
for
to.
Palestinian lives, which just increases the emotional blackmail in the world, which gives them more money. Period. End of story.
Yes, and they decided to launch this war. Number one, and number two, they don't get to decide how the war is fought. They tore the playbook. They killed 2,000 unarmed civilians on the streets, in their homes, in their safe rooms. They tied up them together and set them ablaze. Okay? No, no, this is not going to fly anymore. The IDF and the State of Israel has every single right to prosecute a land campaign against Hamas and demilitarize the Strip. They left them no choice. The only sane choice is to remove the threat actor from the immediate vicinity. And then after you clean your backyard, turn around and you start facing the source. And we all know the source.
Stealth, can you check your DMs for a moment?
But there is that the source is not just there. It's there, you got a problem with Hezbollah as well. So it's not just one source. That's my question.
No, it's infected the entire region, and we started off this discussion. What did Hamas do? Was it one of two things? I think it was the second option. I think it was this. This was unlike any other plan that they ever tried, attempted, you name it. This was to shake Israel to its foundation. It was to shake them and to draw them into a conflict with Hamas. Now, the Islamic Republic called this. I think Em would agree with me that most of us believe that this would be Hamas, then Hezbollah would be drawn in, possibly, and everybody's very nervous about that northern border there. But again, I have a serious concern. We saw it with the Syrian airport strikes, as well as the Iraqi militias. Very early on, even before Nasrallah was making public pronouncements, I saw Iraqi militia mobilizations mobilizing on the western border. I saw Iraqi reconnaissance flights taking place, mapping things out, and I just this is I have maintained from the beginning that this is a war to wipe out Israel, to turn this into a bigger conflict. I don't want to be an alarmist here, but this is truly what I believe, and it's relieving pressure on it's relieving pressure number one on Russia. It's drawing us into that region. It's putting this administration into a very difficult position during an election cycle, which the Islamic Republic preys on. They love to create friction during all adversaries do during election cycles, and there are so many elements that are lining up against Israel on the side, and then you have the political marginalization of Saudi Arabia, for example, and some of these other countries that we could consider allies, that this is absolutely an existential threat for Israel, but not just Israel, it's for the world. We're looking at it, it really is. I said it before, how, this has turned over a lot of stones. You figure out who's on the wrong side of just humanity with this. And it's really opened my eyes to a lot of people, but it also has told me that with the Islamic Republic, you got to believe what they're saying. I do believe that they plan on opening another front. It's just a matter of where it's going to be, and where I thought it was going to be, Lebanon, I'm starting to think it's going to be somewhere else. I'm not
What,
Nostradamus. I want to
where
be
are we
wrong.
at with Jordan, if you don't mind me asking right now, M or Adrian? What's going on with Jordan? I feel like it's very quiet.
King Abdullah is worried about his throne. That's it. It's Black September for him all over again.
Uh-huh.
So he needs to protect his throne. The game in the Middle East right now is simply that some players are trying to offer themselves as the regional power broker. Qatar is doing it using money and media. Turkey is doing it leaning on the Treaty of Lausanne, Article 27. Saudi Arabia is doing it using money. The United Arab Emirates is using it using the business model and money. Right? So you have all those competing players right now. Each one of them is trying to present their credentials to the collective West as the single point of entry into the region. They run the region. They lead
That's
the
a lot of
region, right? It was
suitors. That's
Mubarak.
a lot of suitors.
And Iran is doing it for the Muslim world with jihad, with their sponsorship of both
Exactly.
Sunni. Yeah.
Exactly. They want to be the regional hegemon. They want to export the Islamic Revolution model, and they want to say, well, their proposal is actually quite interesting. Their proposal is this: we have excelled at using terror group and proxy warfare as a tool of statecraft, so we are capable of destabilizing the entire region. You should play ball with us, because and they're doing it. Not just that, they have their influence groups inside the collective West. They're pushing the whole Persia is the natural ally of the West because we are a great civilization. So it's a great civilization because it was Persia, but the modus operandi is one of deploying terrorism and proxy warfare.
Right.
So all those competing players right now are failing to reach a conclusive victory, right? They're all maneuvering, and they have created a zero-sum game. Turkey wants to lead because they have the right to lead because we are the successor to the Ottoman Empire. We have rights in Al-Hijaz. We can run Mecca and Medina. We need to take that from the House of Saud. That's the Turks. The House of Saud, on the other hand, we have the oil, we have the money, we are going to flash the right amount of money everywhere. We're going to have a huge modernization program, and that will open our economy. And therefore, that's FDI, the thing that the collective West loves the most, making a buck. Come to Saudi Arabia, you'll make a lot of bucks. That's their proposal, right? The United Arab Emirates is like, oh, we're not just doing that, but we're also very smart because over the years we've hired a lot of people who used to work in your foreign policy and security circles, and now we have that, and we have a large body of people who can advise on policy, and we also have free trade, and we have a business center, and we have Disneyland in the desert, and everyone can come live and work in the United Arab Emirates and enjoy freedoms, and we accept inclusion. So what will happen next? What will happen is that actually the West needs to move away from this. They need to move away from trying to find one regional power broker to delegate the region to, because the whole idea, the whole policy of pivoting away from the Middle East so that you can pivot to China because that's the rising power and that's the next threat, it is a failure, right? So three different policies failed in the West: decoupling from the Middle East, accepting moderate Islamists as international partners, and Persia as a natural ally of the West. That's the reckoning. Welcome to the Middle East 2.0. We still have cookies, but it's gone haywire.
Where does Egypt stand? Because they've always wanted to be a Sunni, and maybe not hegemon, but a Sunni leader in the Sunni world. Where do they stand in terms of how they're positioned, where they find themselves? Are they sidelined a little
They're
bit?
the redheaded stepson.
We've been played out.
Yeah, they're played out.
Pure and simple. We've been played out for several reasons. But mind you, Al Azhar remains the strongest authority. Granted, there is no central authority in Islam, but no one is going to dispute the leadership of Al Azhar, and no one is going to dispute the leadership of Sheikh Ahmad al Taib. Not because of his standing in Al Azhar and his standing globally, but because of his lineage as well. Sheikh Ahmad al Taib comes from Al Radwan. The House of Radwan is one of the strongest families in Egypt. And the House of Radwan is a member of one of the most eminent Sufi orders in the region. He's unrivaled. And I'm not saying this because I'm an Egyptian or my allegiance is to Sheikh Ahmad al-Taib. It's just the fact. And that's why you see all those
He's unrivaled
attempts
in
at...
terms of the respect people have for him. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And that's why you see a lot of money being spent on building all those, fancy religious organizations, the Alliance of so and so Imams, the International Council of Muslims, the this, the da da da. These are all parastructures that are competing for influence. No one is going to take away the influence of Al Azhar, and that's what they are not realizing. And that's Al Azhar hasn't even taken their gloves off because we're not interested in this fight. And we don't want to, we're not going to allow religion to be brought into this.
There was a statement.
Not to mention the border. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a statement that just came out. The widely expected Israeli ground offensive in Gaza might not happen, says IDF spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht suggested on Tuesday. The Israeli military is preparing for the next phase of its operation, although it will not reveal what this involves, he added. We're preparing for the next stages of war. We haven't said what they will be, Hecht told journalists at a briefing. Everybody's talking about the ground offensive. It might be something different, he added, without elaborating. Oh, if I'm right again, somebody better buy me an ice cream.
I'm going to predict that it's not something different. Although it might be like, special operations, offensive with air cover or whatever, but there's going to be a large ground offensive.
Does anybody have...
They're not going in with kid gloves. They're not going in with kid gloves on this. They're just that they don't want to reveal anything, and I don't blame them. Everybody's talking about a ground offensive. That seems to be the flashpoint that the Islamic Republic keeps on using. So they're just trying to, they're waiting in their... You don't announce your game plan, your battle plan to the enemy. Just like, we're not going to talk about certain stuff on here.
I have a comment out of Russia. Washington's decision to send long-range, how do you say it? ATACMS? Is that the abbreviation ATACMS? I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, ATACMS.
Missiles.
ATACMS, yeah. ATACMS or ATACMS. Yeah.
Missiles to Ukraine was a grave mistake that will have serious consequences, Russia's ambassador to U.S. said on Wednesday after Kiev said it used the weapons for the first time.
Yeah, that's well, the ATACMS were deployed against an airfield in Berdyansk. So the Russians prepared that airfield to host most of their rotary wing assets there. Their helicopters, basically, they stationed a lot of their Ka-52s, their alligators there. Those are helicopter gunships that provide close air support. They have standoff missiles they can launch anywhere between 10 to 12 kilometers, and they were using them against the Ukrainian armor advancing specifically in Zaporizhia. I haven't seen a lot of operations in the Bakhmut direction, but they were also using them there as well. But mainly, this was a glorious attack, to be quite honest. I know a lot of people don't support what's happening in Ukraine, and that's fine. Yeah. It's okay. But with the ATACMS being deployed against the rotary wing assets being deployed in Berdyansk means that the Ukrainians have a better shot at expanding the breakthrough in Zaporizhia across the first Surovikin line. And actually, last night, they might have crossed the Dnieper, and we might see a breakthrough in Kherson as well. So watch it closely. It was the right thing to do because the Russians
they have a range of things. They have a long range of about 190 miles, I think, those missiles. 300 kilometers.
The model that was used, the model that was used actually is the oldest ATACMS. The wreckage of the missile shows that it was produced in 1996 or 1997.
Wow.
You're getting the destruction of an evil empire on the cheap using weapons that are at least 30 years old. And they have been sitting there not doing anything. They were designed to do this.
Right.
And now you're seeing them in action.
Question. So the United Nations Security Council is set to meet, today, your time. And it's drafted, no, tomorrow, U.S. time. So the United States Security Council is going to vote on a draft from the Brazilians. I don't know why they came up with the draft, but I'm sure there's some reason behind it, for a humanitarian pause in the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Then the UAE has requested to discuss, and guess what? Russia also, the Gaza hospital blast that killed people. Of course, the Palestinian UN envoy, Riyad Mansour, blamed the Israelis, whereas Ambassador Gilad Erdan issued a statement accusing the Palestinian PIJ for the responsibility. We have all the footage and all the evidence. I have like 17 threads by different analysts with enough footage that, they must own a satellite to see the kind of footage I have at this point. Let me see here. As of right now, Reuters still could not independently verify who's responsible, even though we've had confirmation, I would say about across 24 respected sites. So they were going to meet on Monday. It was postponed 24 hours for more negotiation time. Any temperature check, if this is just posturing or visuals while other things happen, what is the expectation out of this meeting, in your opinion? And then the fact that the UAE and the Russians are coming to the table to discuss things. I mean, obviously, we know why the Russians are going to do it. It's basically going to be a counter opposition to the U.S., essentially, to piss off the U.S. And then simultaneously, the UAE, to support the U.S. and Israel, will be showing the truth. So how do you think that narrative will play out, and will it humiliate the Russians?
The United Arab Emirates, along with the other Gulf monarchs, calculated after the Arab Spring that they are next, and therefore they needed to build new relationships with China and Russia in order to counter the pressure of the collective West. The United Arab Emirates is one of the biggest winners since the war broke out in Ukraine, because most of the Russian money went to the United Arab Emirates. Most of the Russian crypto went to the United Arab Emirates. The sale of luxury real estate units and real estate units as a whole increased. Not just that, they are helping the Russians bypass the sanctions. If you examine dual-use goods going through the United Arab Emirates to Russia, that export volume, specifically when it comes to dual-use electronics and optics, was around $1 to $3 million before the war, and now it's pushing $400 million. So right now, the Emiratis are working with the Russians because they want to, again, it's appeasement. They don't want a war with Iran because, well, guess what? 50% of the money in Jabal Ali comes from Iran anyway. So they don't want a regional confrontation with Iran, and they think that they can build bridges and they can continue, stabilizing the situation by throwing money at the problem. They are mistaken. And to work with the Russians right now is, again, Russia is trying to stage a comeback for a multipolar world order. And some Arab countries are interested in seeing that because they want to alleviate the diplomatic and political pressure being applied on them by the collective West. It is a bad policy. It is a bad policy. So the United Arab Emirates calling for this Security Council session with the Russians is basically posturing, right? And they're trying to bring the Russians into the equation. And I was like, oh, hello, you're showing your face now. Okay, I kind of felt that you were involved from day one, but I was waiting for you to make an entry. And they are trying now to leverage what's happening in the Middle East to, again, introduce themselves as a peer to the collective West that can effect change globally and can bring about de-escalation to flashpoints. It is cynical. But will something good come out of it? No. Because I don't want the Russians and I don't want the Emiratis tying the IDF's hands behind their back and prevent them from responding to the massacre of 2,000 people. That's fucking criminal. That's bringing a bigger thug into the fight to prevent the righteous person from avenging what had just been inflicted upon them and their family. It is criminal.
At the same token, this is at the same time, I should say, this is this typical UN dance where everyone does their thing, especially about Middle Eastern stuff, because they all think they can win a Nobel Prize. They all think they can pander to either business interests or their own people, and then nothing ends up happening. And in this case, obviously, because there's a veto from America, probably the UK and France, not to mention it may not even get a majority in the first place, they're just going to talk a lot and do nothing. That's what happens at the UN so often, thankfully.
Yeah, the United Nations is going through its League of Nations moment right now. Thing is, if this continues to escalate like this, it's the end of international law, and we'll have to find another framework to go forward. I don't want to live in the world where, you know, anyone with a stick can just go and force a de facto reality on someone else just because they don't have a stick, or because the guy who has the biggest stick is just busy dealing with, you know, domestic issues. It's a moment of vulnerability and weakness in our world, not just in the collective West. There are aspirant democracies and there are aspirant people who wish to stay away from conflict, who do not want to wage war and do not subscribe to hateful ideologies. When the collective West disengages, or when the vulnerabilities of the collective West are being exploited by bad faith actors globally, then all decent people worldwide don't stand a chance. They will lose hope in a better future for themselves and their children. It's what's unfolding in front of our eyes right now is the biggest challenge, not to domestic politics, not to economies. It's the biggest challenge to our very existence. Where do we go from here as peoples across the world who disagree with this and want to make it stop and need to make it stop? It's a cold war between democracies and authoritarian regimes, using technology, using warfare, using proxies, using terrorism, using internet, the dark web, crypto, information domain, you name it. It's a fight to the death across all domains. And one clear victor has to emerge, not because they are the bully, but because they are the hope for a better future.
Gosh, can I play an audio clip right now from an hour ago? This is from Michael Present from the Senior Fellow Hudson Institute. I don't know how you guys feel about him. I want your analysis on this. Has to do with the Hamas negotiating hostage demands. I think this is a really, I don't know. I want you to hear this. But yes, go ahead.
Anything that comes out of Mike Preachant's mouth, listen to it.
Okay, then
absorb it. Soak it in.
Very smart guy. Very smart guy.
Name it. I'm friends with him.
So let's.
He knows his shit.
Okay, let's listen.
October 7th. These 40 countries are working desperately to get their people out. And we cannot have Qatar broker those hostage negotiations, because we've seen what the price of using Qatar to broker hostage negotiations. When it comes to the 5 Americans that were released from Iran, we gave Iran through Qatar, and I know it's on hold now, but I could put quotes around hold. We gave them $6 billion. So the hostage negotiations right now, Qatar cannot be a part of it. And based on where these hostages are, I think there are a lot of us that just don't want to say it, that we don't think they're going to be able to come out alive.
Oh dear. I mean, that's the fear. Yeah. Well, Michael, I mean, I guess at a basic level, what does Hamas get out of holding hostages, performing surgeries on these people, creating videos with these people, if there is no plan to barter? Usually you want to get something in return and move people.
So what Hamas will do is they'll get the Americans, because they unfortunately are on a higher return rate for ransom payment. They'll get some of the European countries. They'll get the hostages to Lebanon, and from Lebanon maybe they'll go to Iran, and from there these European countries will actually have to pay ransoms to get their people out. The issue is has Hamas had enough time to get these hostages out of Gaza into Lebanon, so that Iran can use them to barter? Now the Israeli hostages will stay with Hamas, but the European hostages, the American hostages, will definitely start falling into an Iran guarantor status, where it's either Lebanese Hezbollah or the IRGC Quds Force proper that holds these hostages.
I see. Okay. Well, if Hamas does not plan to release Israeli hostages, then does that remove any barriers that might still exist that Israel is kind of holding back, not going full throttle with an attack?
if you see the parents of people that were killed during this attack on October 7th, the parents were actually, it's terrible to say this, parents would prefer their child be dead and be able to be buried than be a hostage to Hamas or Lebanese Hezbollah or Iran. I think the Israelis at this point know that they have to go in and they have to treat Hamas just like ISIS, just like we did. We went to war with ISIS for 5 years because it killed 5 American journalists. The Israelis are going to go to war with Hamas because they killed upwards of 1,300. The United States should do everything we can to support Israel and deterring Lebanese Hezbollah and Iran from getting into the fight because they killed 27 Americans, and there are American hostages as well. Any signal to Iran, Lebanese Hezbollah, or Hamas that somehow the U.S. resolve for Israel is wavering based on today's attack on this hospital where we don't know who did it yet, but we do know Hamas has done it in the past accidentally with a rocket misfire. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, in the meantime, all of us are just praying, looking at these kids drinking out of sippy cups and babies in bassinets. It's heartbreaking. Michael Preachin, senior fellow with Hudson Institute.
Okay. They showed the pictures that I can't even believe I'm looking at Hamas Islamist terrorist fighters babysitting babies. The shame I'm sorry, it's just embarrassing. You're not men. You're not even terrorists. I'm sorry. You want to go militant upon militant, army against army? You're basically fucking after school care babysitters, in my opinion. And you're women. That's all I have to say. Not even women. Go ahead, M.
Yeah, well, they don't have a route to extract hostages from the Gaza Strip and deliver them to Lebanon. So I
Why?
disagree on the
Why?
possibility. They're blockaded. How can they get the Gaza Strip is in the southernmost part of Israel. There is no way to reach Lebanon unless they fly all the way from the Gaza Strip into Lebanon. Not going to happen. Go by sea. Not going to happen. Go over land. Not going to happen. Cross into the Sinai. Never happened. Will never happen. It's impossible. How can they extract them unless we're talking long term, unless we're talking that the IDF doesn't manage to find the subterranean location where they are hiding. That's or unless they dug a tunnel all the way to Lebanon. That's impossible. But or, I don't see a way for them delivering hostages to Lebanon. Granted, yes, they will keep all Israeli hostages till the very bitter end with them. But I believe that the foreign nationals are still in the Gaza
Well,
Strip.
the Red Cross went and visited with them today to see the status of the health. Do you really fucking think they showed the Red Cross all the people, or did they show them maybe a half dozen, or did they?
I don't think they've showed them any, have
Yeah,
they?
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think
I
they've
just
seen
saw
any
the
of them yet.
interview of the Red Cross going in and the Hamas militants face, yeah, whatever, reindeer games. But
I don't believe the Red Cross had access to all of the
no, not
hostages.
all, but
I believe
some.
it's because they must be kept in separate locations.
Exactly. Well, they showed a facility in a video that I just watched, and it was on. I'll find the. It was. I'll pull it.
Can you send it to the back channel there,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sel?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The Red Cross
But we
one?
know that in the Red Cross are a lot of certain type of foreign agents that get embedded, right? And it's not just regular, physicians and whatever. So, but just
Well, besides that, Hamas just doesn't care about their so-called international obligations.
yeah,
They
yeah.
could
But
give a
those are
shit.
usually brokers, maybe that you can negotiate with, right? So at first they asked about a few hours ago. They asked for 6,000 Palestinians to be released from prison. That was their first request. Then the second request. Let me see. There was 3 requests. The first request.
Ceasefire,
No,
something
no,
like
no,
that,
no, no.
right?
The second request was, we're not giving you anything. Then the third request was, stop the bombardment and we'll give you back the 200 people, which he said are most likely dead. And then you heard the comment that most of the parents said. So Adrian, go ahead. I'm a little bit confused by this guy that you love.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me give you a little background on Mike. Okay, so he was in military intelligence from 1986 to 2006. He studied the Iraqi militias. He was a subject matter expert at CENTCOM DIA. That's just not giving too much away. So what he's looking at right now, and what many of us are looking at, is the traditional hostage pattern that's carried out by the Islamic Republic. And yes, it is difficult to get hostages out of Gaza, but we also have to remember there was, what, 10 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, where it was complete fog of war, where those hostages were taken, they were separated, and I believe they were separated by nationalities in many cases. Now, you pull in the Islamic Republic and their background of kidnapping. The Beirut hostage crisis was run from 1980 to 1992. People thought they were just being held in different locations around Beirut, but that's not true. They were transported all the way to Evin Prison. Our CIA station chief, William Buckley, was tortured to death there. They moved one priest who went there to try and mediate, and then get another priest out of detention. They set him up and they transported him around Lebanon in a refrigerator that was in the back of a pickup truck that they eventually moved to another area. Another example, TW-847, longest hijacking in history, 17 days, run by Imad Munir and two IRGC officers on the ground. One of the stops in Beirut, one of the 3 stops they made in Beirut, they took all the hostages off the plane. They took all the Americans, they separated them. They took all the Jews, separated them in another bunch. They took all the American military personnel and separated them in another bunch. So this is kind of the mindset that we're working off. And also keeping in the back of our mind that a hostage deal was just struck, where it is our government. The Germans have had a horrible history of paying for hostage releases. They have done it. They keep it under the radar. But we just put a 1.3 billion price tag on every single American's head with this deal, with Qatar brokering it. And that has not been frozen. People are calling Congress before, but that's a situation. And that's what Mike is evaluating right now in where we are, where we stand right now. That's how these hostage crises break down.
Any comment to that?
No, I fully agree. I fully agree. I just doubt the capability that they can move them right
But
now, or
but
even move them during the chaos and the
but didn't we
confusion.
doubt the
Yeah,
capability of them to do what they just did? So wouldn't there be a separate
Oh,
system?
absolutely.
Wouldn't there be already a separate organization to get those hostages?
But how? What is the route? It's either land, air, or sea. How can you get them to Lebanon
There
in
was a
10
lot of
hours?
cars. There was a
How?
lot of cars at that music conference. They could have had a truck waiting. They could have put them in the back of a truck and started moving them. They could have brought them to one of the houses that they killed everybody in, sorted them, drugged them, separated them. I mean, if they could have prepared fucking paragliders, then they.
But yes, but to where? Which border? They need, okay, they took the hostages, they have a vehicle. Where do they drive? Do they drive all the way up north across Israel to the Lebanese borders? No. Where do they take them? That's my point. To the Sinai? No, that didn't happen. The
Jordan, I
IDF
guess Jordan through the West Bank. There's no evidence of that, right?
Could it?
the IDF would have known. The IDF would
Yeah,
have released that information by now.
Why?
The
yeah.
idea, because it gives them every right to operate wherever they need to operate in order to extract the hostages.
But then they would have had to go into the West Bank. And do they want to do that?
They go into the West
They
Bank every
can.
single day,
They've
literally every
they've
single
gone.
day.
They have been arresting Palestinians inside the West Bank for days now, and they have
Yeah.
seized large amounts of munitions and kit. I mean, if those hostages were moved anywhere, the IDF would have known by now.
I guess the only chance is maybe there are some new tunnels that the Egyptians haven't found in going into Sinai, but by most accounts, they did a pretty effective job closing
I,
them off. Yeah.
there's a 5 kilometer buffer zone and a second field army contingent and drones flying over all over Sinai. There is no way. There is no. Let's say that they crossed in tunnels into the Sinai. more than 45 different checkpoints, and they were all put on high alert, every single one of them. It's impossible for them to reach anywhere where they can fly them, move them to Lebanon. They are in Gaza. My assessment, to a high degree of confidence, they are in Gaza. Is this another black swan and they had a hidden capability? Well, absolutely. 1% chance,
Let
10%
me ask you
chance.
a question. The senior Pentagon official that worked for Qatar regime, this guy Yusra Fazili, the chief of staff for the comptroller and chief financial officer of the Pentagon, who served as a strategic advisor to Qatar's ambassador. There's questions right now to Lloyd Austin and the Department of Defense that this person is severely, severely compromised. Any information on that?
No, I don't have any information on him.
Adrian?
Which guy?
Let me send you the info on it. It is Yusra Fazili, the chief of staff for the comptroller and chief financial officer of the Pentagon. Served as strategic advisor to Qatar's ambassador. And it seems to be that there's some kind of compromisation there.
I'm not going to go into detail
No
about
problem.
that, but there's some really sketchy dudes on the Fed as well, which gives me pause. I'm not going to go into
No
detail
problem.
about that either.
Not to mention not to mention the potential Iranian mole in the Pentagon
Oh no,
recruited by.
it's not potential. It's absolutely.
That's
Real.
Okay, but fine, fair enough.
It's
They
DOD,
basically
DOD,
confirmed mole.
DOD, State Department. It goes through all levels, and I'm also worried about certain elements within our some of our three-letter agencies. So, as I said before earlier in the day, Vise, Tabatai, that's just the tip of the iceberg. You're going to see more of them come forward, but the U.S. government really hasn't done anything except for suspend Malley, who got a cushy teaching job at Princeton, and he's doing a little lecturing at Yale, but he's under FBI investigation.
Yusra. I know Yusra. Yeah, well, no comment.
By the way, Adrian, you brought up that TWA flight. I don't know if you know this, but U.S. tried to extradite that main guy, Hamadei, whatever his name.
Mohammed Hamidi.
Yep.
Mohammed Hamidi.
But Germany would not. They prosecuted him. He got life in prison. He was let out in 2005.
Yeah, it was for the Iraqi proxies had a German citizen, journalist, and that's what happened. Hamidi is responsible for the murder of a U.S. serviceman.
The one they killed and threw out the plane, or
Yep. Robert Statham.
Yep.
He is a brutal animal, this individual, and he got released. He got paroled not paroled. He got let go in 2005. It was another cash exchange, and he's been in the wind ever since. So, and we want him extradited, and it was under the condition that he would never step foot out of prison, and that's why he was not extradited to the U.S. for the assassination of this sailor. And the accounts of him is beating. It's actually a good thing that they did put him out of his misery, because it was horrific if you read the accounts.
So I want you to know that Hamas and the Russians are creating fake emails from military generals in the US, emailing it to real emails regarding, wow, I cannot, what is going on with our internal security systems that Hamas and Russia are able to go into a US military colonel or general or chief of staff and email an email to another prominent person in the US, and it's a fake email, and it's used to create a narrative regarding anti-Semitism. I mean, I'm sure this happens all the time, but then for it to be leaked, wow. I mean, you're talking some real operations by both the Russians and the Qataris and the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, there's a lot of statecraft going on for
right
sure.
now. It's very heavy. I mean, and it's like,
And you have to throw the Chinese in there as well,
yes,
because
actually.
they are just experts at
And
this.
their output is
Chinese,
like every
Qataris,
2 seconds.
Russians.
I mean, there's a high flow
Yeah,
right now. So either they
yeah.
had this all prepped and ready to go and they just click a button, or that's just like, oh, I've got this email, I've got this email, let's do this narrative. I got this email, and whatever sticks to a wall, right?
Yeah, it's like a major propaganda campaign on
I
another
sent you
level.
that sample, Adrian. I'll send it to Em if you want it for laughs. Let me just send it to you.
Can you put that in the group as well, Stealth?
I'll send it to just you unless somebody individually wants it. I don't want it spreading.
Okay, send it to me, please. Thank you. So we let Daniel go ahead in the
Yeah,
meantime?
of course.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Hey, sorry, I'm getting a bit tired and it's late here, and I've been doing media all day. I think I raised my hand on the hostage thing, but I think my point is here. I think we just have to give the hostages up for dead or worse. Is I think the lesson we go on here. We can't do another Gilad Shalit. We can't. What are we going to do? Release literally every single terrorist in the country to bolster Hamas's
Just
ranks to
6,000.
get
How
them
many
back?
do we have in the prisons? Do we know?
It's around 5 to 6,000. I mean, that's 5,000 people immediately joining their ranks, and that's 5,000 people that the IDF will have to engage in combat with, or will sneak under tunnels or whatever, or pop up. And like, this is again why I'm done with the phone calls and the door knocking and the whatever. Like, it's a horrible thing to say, but I think we've heard it from Israeli families themselves. Like, it's not a bad thing if a hostage dies quickly and painlessly in a bomb, because it's a better fate than what awaits them from Hamas. You saw the videos of what they do, and it's horrifying. And having hostages die now prevents Hamas from filming videos of rape, torture, and mutilation to send to the families to be used as jihadist propaganda. Like, it's a horrible thing to say. It's a horrible thing to think. I don't like these thoughts, but I think it's something that we're all going to need to come to terms with very quickly, because if we start putting pressure on the Israelis to not do things because of fears or concerns of hostages, like, we know the reason they took hostages is to manipulate and to try and stymie any type of offensive, because combat's about momentum in a lot of things. Like, the most casualties happen when an army breaks and is routed. And if you can use the hostages to stymie momentum, reinforce your positions, call for ceasefires. We know the definition of a ceasefire. A ceasefire from Hamas means a reload, right? And if you continue to give in to their demands, or if you give them any sort of credibility here, or you stop the advance, or you take your foot off the gas pedal, it means the next time you put it on, that's more Jewish lives you're going to have to give up to do that. And honestly, these aren't honest brokers. These aren't honest brokers. You can't trust a single thing they'll say. I mean, if Hamas wants to call for, okay, we'll trade you all the hostages for ending bombardment, you could say, sure, fine, give us the hostages and we'll stop bombing Gaza, and then pull a Hamas and then kill them anyway. Like, they're not honest brokers. There's no need to broker honestly with someone who has a history of dishonesty. And if we allow them to manipulate us with the horrors they're going to inflict on these people, then it's going to be more and more people dying, and more people will end up in this situation. So, it's sort of the horrible reality of what to face. But I think a lot of us, the second we saw the images of Hamas terrorists in cars doing mass jihad, a lot of us knew where this was going and what needs to happen and what's going to happen. And, a lot of it's horrifying. But I think this is one of those areas where we need sort of that mental resolve to push through, because if we lose that, and then they manage to manipulate us with, their psychopathy, then it's going to be more Israeli lives lost, and that's just we can't keep trading Israeli lives for public opinion of people who will never love us. Like
Daniel, Tamir is here, and M has a response. Can you wait 1 second, just in case they want to engage with you? Go ahead, M, and then we'll go to Tamir.
No, I just will say one sentence, please, because I have to leave. I need to go to the European Parliament. I share a video. We made a video. I shared it now here in this space. Please share it. It's very important. We have a very important battle today in the Parliament.
Can you also DM it to me? I just want to secure it on a DM. Is your DMs open?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Toda. And how's everything going else in Europe? It looks like Europe
I
is
just
on
sent
fire.
it to you. I sent it to you, Stealth.
It looks
Go
like
ahead,
Europe
sorry.
is on fire.
Excuse me?
It looks like Europe is on fire, Tamir.
Yes, we have today debate in the Parliament. Tomorrow they will vote for resolution on the war. We're trying to bring this topic that in the video as one of the amendments. So this is why it's very important for us to do a very aggressive campaign now on this issue, on this matter. So again, I cannot talk too much right now because I have to leave, but
we're going to pray for you. A lot of us fasted today, and we wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you.
And if you would,
Good luck, Tamir. Good luck.
Retweet our space, it helps us too, and of course we'll post your video. Thank you.
I sent it to you, Stealth. By the way, what he sent, what he put up in the.
Okay.
I fully agree with what Daniel said for several reasons. The Abraham Accords were advancing, whether people like them or not, and Saudi Arabia was negotiating a normalization deal, and they were going to what the Iranians calculated as force their visions when it comes to the solution of the Arab-Israeli conflict. If you take the Arab-Israeli conflict out of the equation, then you take the casus belli that the Islamic regime in Iran is using to offer itself as a regional hegemon. Right, the whole premise of the Islamic Republic is that they are working to liberate Palestine. Right, let's put the annihilation of Israel on the side. Right, let's assume that they are rational decision makers and they're going for the quote-unquote liberation of Palestine. Okay, so if someone else is actually working through peaceful means. If someone else is pursuing a resolution for the Arab-Israeli conflict or the Palestinian-Israeli conflict through diplomacy and investments in the future of those territories and the future of the region to work as a power for peace or force for peace and development and progress, of course regressive power will try to challenge that. What do? Well, they deploy terrorism and proxy warfare to achieve their goal. Again, the competing models, we always go back to the competing models. Of course, they had to take hostages. Of course, they needed to see as much collateral as possible so that they can continue this feeding this eternal flame of hatred, right? They need that sacred flame to keep on burning because that's the only way for them to continue to operate. I fully agree with Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, Mem's right. One of the pillars of the Islamic Republic is sort of the destruction of Israel, and it's one of the ways they've gained quasi-legitimacy in the Muslim world by being, the true super terrorists, let's say. Like, they're the ones really working to destroy Israel. I mean, post 1974, right, you had the Arab countries kind of realize, okay, as nations attacking Israel, it's not gonna work. Let's shift it to more, terrorism and the PLO and all that. But one of the pillars of the Islamic Republic is hatred of Israel. There's a few others, but that is a pretty big one that they have used to spread global propaganda. So yeah, I'll be Stealth. Thanks, glad to see you back. I'll be at one of your spaces hopefully tomorrow, but I gotta wake up early to do Indian media, so
God
gotta
willing.
go talk
to you soon. Thank you so much.
And I just want to add something about 1979. That was a seismic shift right there because you had Anwar Sadat, and he's also abandoned this the Palestinian Israeli wipe Israel off the face of the map narrative, and that gets dropped, and you have the Islamic Republic come to power, and you have Muammar Gaddafi, and they kind of pick up the mantle from there. Gaddafi's gone, but the Islamic Republic continues to carry that mantle, and now they've spread their influence through Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq, and elsewhere.
I'm very uncomfortable with the fact that we've resolved something about the hostages, but I have to be an adult, so it is what it is. Go ahead, Mira's Bubby.
Hi, thank you. I hate to say it, I'm a mom, and um, the images of the hostages, it breaks my heart. And if my husband was there, captured, it would break my heart. But uh, the good of for the good of one, the for a group, it outweighs what's happening with one person. So, and I'll give you an example. When my dad was in Vietnam. They were out uh, doing what they do, in the jungle, and they got caught in an ambush. And so two of their fellow soldiers stayed back to provide cover fire, and they were killed. But the unit was able to get away because of that. And so this is kind of similar.
Except that
Does
they're
everybody
civilians. They're
stay in?
civilians, and that's a little different when you conscript to go to the military. There's a different mindset, you know.
I understand. I understand completely. You haven't read my profile, but
I have.
okay. But I was a
I
nurse.
understand.
Yeah. So but the point is, it, they were living in an environment that they knew could become hostile at any moment. And
Who? The
so
hostages?
you kind of have it. You kind of have that. Well, they were living in Israel,
No,
so I mean,
these are
rocket fire
kids
and
that came to party like from all over Europe in Ibiza. It's a very different mindset. I think you're missing some of the point there. I just we don't have M for a long time. I just want to discuss one thing, and we can go back to a little bit of the foundational stuff around your question. So give me 1 second here, just from a military perspective. Does anybody have any other questions for M? Just want to make sure if you want to DM me or raise your hand so that I can get those to him, because I we don't often get him very often. So and Em, I just have another question. Is there any footage or imagery of what the crossing looks like, and has there been any uprising at the crossing at Egypt, and has there been any pushback if there's any type of insurgents or like militants trying to get through, and are they taking over any people that need medical care? Just curious.
No, the crossing is quite safe.
And they're processing 2,000 a
When
day or less?
no, we're not processing anyone. The crossing is open on the Egyptian side, but it is closed on the Palestinian side. In order for you to enter the Egyptian territories, you need a stamp that you exited the Palestinian territories. There is no one manning the crossing on the other side to stamp passports so that people exit the Palestinian territories and then go enter the Egyptian territories. We cannot.
Oh.
If you were in Gaza and you entered Gaza, how did you enter Gaza? Either you flew into Ben Gurion and then you crossed into Gaza through Erez or Kerem Shalom if it were open, or you crossed into Gaza through Egypt. You landed in Cairo or you landed in Sharm el-Sheikh and then you drove all the way to Rafah and then you crossed, right? So you need to stamp your passport. You need to exit Palestinian territories. You either do that through the crossing at Rafah, or you go all the way to Erez, but that's closed now, or all the way to Kerem Shalom, well, that's closed as well. So the only point going out is Rafah. But in order for you to get out of Gaza through the Rafah border crossing, you need to pass through Palestinian passport control first. That's not working. That's the whole thing. There is no one, at least as far as I know, there is no one staffing the crossing on the Palestinian side. There is no one to stamp passports of people who want to leave the Gaza Strip on the Palestinian side, whether it's done by Hamas, whether they are forcing the employees not to work, or whether the crossing on the Palestinian side has been bombed. I don't have the full picture, but on the Egyptian side, the border crossing is open. The photos of the concrete blocks being placed. Those are interlocking concrete blocks that are usually placed together in order to form a blast wall.
Right.
A blast wall protects against the shockwave of ordnance, of airstrikes, right? And a clear photo was taken by an Associated Press journalist, photographer, yesterday morning. It shows that those concrete blocks are not completely blockading the gates of the crossing.
And we saw the UN trucks leaving Gaza yesterday, going into Egypt, grabbing some fuel, and then going back into Gaza. So the crossing is operational, but it's only operational for people who have jurisdiction to cross the border without being stamped, i.e., the United Nations, or if there is a functioning crossing point on the Palestinian side that is stamping the passports with an exit stamp, because we need to control who's coming in and out of the border. We will not allow a spillage of refugees into Egypt, period. And we will not allow the borders to become violated, because that's sovereignty. B, that's a security risk. And C, we don't know if Hamas, using their subterranean infrastructure and having access to the equipment required to issue passports, would forge passports or identification documents to allow people to cross. It's a huge security risk for everyone, the Israelis and the Egyptians included. And if Hamas or any other armed Palestinian faction just tries or thinks about trying to overwhelm the border force, well, good luck to them.
Hey, real quick, guys, we're gonna go through the final couple hands here, then do some final thoughts from our hostess with the mostess, and then take a short break so that we can recuperate to discuss these things further in the very, very near future.
Go ahead, Sin, and then I'll go to Rwanda.
Yeah, what do you? How should we be interpreting the fact that it's been 6 hours at least of the rioting and protests that have broken out in Turkey, in particular, at the embassies and U.S. military installations, and the distinct absence of any sort of Turkish security presence at all?
Erdogan is encouraging it. AKP is encouraging it. NATO ally trademark. The moderate Islamist, whom everyone advocated for his rise until he hijacked democracy, turned it into a ballotocracy, and kept reinforcing his power base, catering inflammatory rhetoric to them domestically, all while trying to play neo-Ottoman caliphate to the Middle East and trying to play NATO ally elected leader to the West. This is the price of ignoring consistency as a currency in conducting foreign policy. Short-sightedness and focus on short-term interests. The same will happen in Jordan, but that's in Jordan, it's a different thing. In Jordan, King Abdullah is using it as a safety valve. He needs to, it's a pressure cooker there. So he needs to release the pressure. So he will allow people to vent because he doesn't want to risk his throne. That's the only game King Abdullah, that's the only game the Hashemite kingdom has played since its inception. Maintaining the throne, because the Hashemites were more or less overthrown. It's a long history, but basically the Hashemites are the arch nemesis to the House of Saud. They have the de jure authority. King Abdullah is challenging King Mohammed VI of Morocco to the de jure position of being the recognized caliphate of all Muslims, caliph of all Muslims. And Erdogan is trying to do that in an EU fashion, while King Mohammed VI is not invested in this, and he doesn't even want his own throne, to be quite honest, let alone being the caliph of all Muslims. So he's not challenging anyone out of. There's this position of prestige in these matters. It's like, oh, okay, you're the de jure caliph of the Muslims, and everyone's just challenging you. He will ask you, who's everyone? Oh, Erdogan, King Abdullah, the House of Saud. He will say, well, Erdogan is a crazy Turk. King Abdullah is the head of a towel-head monarchy, excuse my French, and the House of Saud are just the House of Saud. They're not worthy of me commenting on their aspirations or commenting on their political moves. That's why King Mohammed VI has been out of this. And he will not allow himself to be dragged into this, but he will definitely release a statement. But he couldn't care less. He has a security and an economic alliance with the state of Israel, and he has a normalization deal, and he's not going to risk that. And you will not see demonstrations in Morocco, Marrakesh, and you'll not see them. Pure and simple. King Abdullah is using them as a vent. Erdogan is making his move. And he'll continue to make moves because he still has his eyes on the Middle East now that he knows that he will never be part of the EU in the future, because the flow of Turk labor into the EU will append the EU as an organization, as a civilization, by means of demographic. Everyone knows that.
So,
Hey guys, can you please repost the space?
yeah, there's 119 reposts, and a lot of you enjoy hours and hours of us. And the least you can do to show respect is to retweet the space so others can listen to the recording and also gain some knowledge. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
can be the one counteraction against all the vicious agitprop, pro jihadi agitprop out there.
Yeah. By the way, in Toronto tonight, they're calling for an intifada. Just so you know, very, 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 very aggressively, all over North America and the U.S. and in Europe, a global intifada. Any thoughts on that?
Someone's losing on the battlefield, and he's using hybrid warfare to strike the seats of power by creating policing problems for them on the street. This will further radicalize people who are upset about what's happening on their streets, what's happening within their communities. It's going for the destabilization of democracy. We have to stop it.
Yeah, and I don't want to besmirch Canada. I spent 5 years up there going to school, but and this was during the 80s. But you go to Toronto, and like the Ashura parades were absolutely frightening. If you're not familiar with what Ashura parades are, uh, I went up there to
Is that the
dinner.
flagellation? Is that the flagellation, Adrian? Like the self-flagellation?
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Then there, I've gone out to dinner with members of the Iranian diaspora, and we were talking about things, and we just had to shut down the conversation because the people who sat down next to us. When the Iranian diaspora was protesting just outside Toronto, there was a couple Palestinians. They weren't even Iranians. They tried to run down the Iranian protesters. These guys still haven't been arrested. You may have seen video of them. This one guy is jackass going around Toronto with a megaphone, just harassing the Jews wherever he possibly can. Toronto is lost. Canada's immigration policy, as bad as America's is, Canada's has been lost for a long time. We consider ourselves the great, what do we call ourselves? A great melting pot. Canada had always referred to itself as the great mosaic, that everybody can keep their own identity and don't integrate. And you're kind of seeing the fruits of it right now. Toronto is lost. It's absolutely scary. Montreal is bad. When you start to get out west, it's not too bad. But then you get to Vancouver, and then you start to run into trouble again.
I want to say thank you to, I don't know how to say your account, crypto rubbers. I'm embarrassed to say it.
Hey, yeah, no, you could just call me Cry. I think that's how it appears on the chat.
Okay.
CRY.
You've made,
You could just call me Cry for
thank you.
short.
You've made some memes that are very provocative, but I appreciate you and God bless you. That's all I have to say. Please go
Thank you.
check out his
Thank you.
memes.
You too.
I can't share all. I've shared some, and even those I'm afraid to share because they're a little provocative for me. But I can tell you that you're very highly effective, and I can see you've been listening to some of the things
Thank
that
you
I've been saying in this space. And
very much.
feel free to take any of my ideas and go forth and prosper, sir. That's all I have to say.
Awesome. I've just been
Yeah, he
working
was
here.
on our space last
Yeah.
night, and he mentioned that he was working on them. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be of service, and I think that it can be effective to use the memes. So I'll keep putting them out as long as
Presidents
you
have
keep
been
liking them.
elected from memes, just so you guys know, meme wars.
Yeah.
If you don't realize that, then we're living in strange times. So I appreciate it.
I wanted to talk about the Intifada.
Sure.
Are we still on
Sure,
that
please.
subject? I've been thinking a lot about that, and just I know in America, when something happens like that, a lot of people will be caught off guard. But then again, there's also a lot of patriots too, and those are definitely quiet people until they pop up, until they have to. So, but I was taking a walk. Somebody said something earlier tonight about a white van in the Oklahoma City bombing.
That was Mitt Romney.
And
Mitt Romney hologram, yeah.
oh, okay. I thought you meant the real Mitt
No.
Romney for
No,
a second.
nobody's real anymore on here, so yeah.
Oh, good. Me neither. Least of all me. but anyhow, I happen to be. I'm just bringing this up, and it sounds crazy, but then again, everything is crazy right now. So, but I walked past a van, and I heard somebody kind of talking loudly in the back of the van, and I just kept, the only word I could understand was boom, boom. I just kept hearing that over and over again, but I couldn't make out the language. It didn't seem like, definitely wasn't Spanish, and I didn't think it was any kind of French that I'd ever heard before. So um anyhow, it sounded like it could be some form of Middle Eastern, so I just kind of stood close and just kind of recorded it,
Oh my gosh! Please be careful.
yeah, and
Don't.
I am, but I mean, it was quiet enough I could do that, and yet, yeah, I was kind of shitting myself too. But anyhow, I just wanted to say that because I think that we have to be vigilant, and if there's anybody that can translate, who's a master of language, and figure out, I took down the information just in case, because I'm kind of expecting something like that to pop up any day now, and
What
I'm
language
on
is it?
edge.
What
He doesn't
language?
know.
I don't know. I couldn't make it out. It didn't sound. It sounded closest to French to me, but it could have been some Middle Eastern language, because I think I'd recognize it if it was
I'll listen
French.
to it. I'll listen to it, see if I recognize it.
It
Okay,
could be
yeah. If you can,
Portuguese. It could be many things.
should
I,
I
I
should I
I
just
would be
post?
happy to
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. I would
Yeah,
Maybe
be
make
happy
should
it
I?
to as well. Because if
crypto. Did you make did you make a tweet out of it yet or not yet? The
No,
audio.
I haven't. I wanted to talk to you about it first and see
Yeah,
if I
why
can.
don't you send it either to Adrian or to Sphinx or both?
Do you want me to just like post it and send it to you, or
Whatever.
no,
Make it into a tweet if you can. Yeah.
I followed you. Just send it
Send
to
it
me
to
on a direct
Adrian.
message for your own
Yeah.
safety, and then I'm gonna listen to it, and then figure out where to go from there.
Send it to
Okay.
me, Adrian, please.
Yeah, if you can, if you could just, if you're able to DM me too, um,
So you can.
that'd be good, because
Yeah.
I'll work on it just so I can have it there to know to message you back. But
Well,
let me see. I just want to make sure I can DM you.
DMs are not open to me, so I can't send you anything
Oh, they're
either.
not.
No,
Are they open to anybody else,
I
or
don't know. It depends if you need to follow them or something.
how about you, Adrian? Can you see my DM, or do I need to do I need to do something under the settings? I was trying to find that today.
Crypto, you have to, I just had to change it.
I'm
I'll tell
opening it.
you, I can tell you what you need to do. I had to do it recently. They changed a setting. You have to go in there and indicate that people can follow you who aren't verified as well as are verified. Like the whole thing, you just got to go to settings. It's a recent change.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sent you a couple messages, so we'll
Thank.
see if
Oh,
they
you
come
were
through.
able to DM me. Okay, so.
And I'm
Did you
following you as well.
were you gonna walk me through that? Who was that was just telling me that Twitter changed their, or I mean X changed their.
Uwana.
If you want, I can do that with you
Privately.
after we, one-on-one privately. Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
can do that, no problem. I sent you a DM excuse me, a tweet. We'll figure out in a moment. Absolutely.
Perfect.
No problem.
And
You bet.
Adrian, you said you
As
sent
did
me a.
I, so please send it to me.
Who said? Oh,
Yeah.
Sphinx.
Yeah.
Yes. What did you say before? Please send it to me. Oh,
They're recording
there
it.
you
Yeah,
are.
I sent you a DM
Oh,
as
I do see
well.
it. Yep.
Yeah, so
Cool.
please send it because I can recognize the languages as well.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Cool. So then I have the license plate. If it does happen to be anything, maybe it wasn't, but I'll manipulate the audio so that you can hear it as best as possible, or you might have to manipulate the audio a little on your end too, if you can, if you have a sound system or whatever. So,
Right. Whereabouts was this? If you're comfortable saying.
No, you don't
it
have to dox
is,
General.
yourself. Don't dox yourself, please.
No.
okay.
Just in general.
No,
Like what state or
no,
what
no,
country?
no. Don't
Okay.
don't.
I can,
Yeah, you can DM
I
him.
can, who
Charlie,
was it?
you
Who
got
was that, by the
problems,
way?
man.
Yeah,
Okay. Go ahead.
Who was saying that?
it was
No worries. No worries.
Don't worry
Just
about it.
DM it. DM it.
You don't have to tell anybody. You just tell Adrian.
Well, whoever was just, who was it? What's your name that was just talking? Is that
Charlie.
Charlie?
Charlie.
Charlie.
Oh, Charlie. Yeah. I can, DM you more information if you want to.
No
If
worries.
you
That
want to.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds
It
good.
doesn't
Okay.
matter. He doesn't work for the FBI or for the CIA or anything special. So better Adrian. If it is a U.S. concern, a threat risk, it's best to go to Adrian first, and then he can help guide that audio to somebody just in case.
Yeah. Yeah. My point is just that we all have to be awake, because at a certain point, you got to be able to fight or run or do whatever you got to do, and I think just being cautious of being, in large groups and stuff like that, at least for me, that seems prudent. But
Well, I'll
I
tell you
mean,
for me,
just to be
I'll tell you for
vigilant.
me, before September 11th, but really since September 11th, I don't go to large concerts or venues or anything where
Right.
could be high risk targets for anything. So that's just me.
Yeah, me too.
So
Yeah, me
yeah.
too. Definitely.
So
I'm with you on that.
and I don't I don't go to
Sure.
countries where I don't feel safe either. So that's another factor. Go ahead, Moana. How are you? Chifach.
It's what can I say? You know, South first, I just wanted, I've not had a chance to even say to you one to one, like, thank you so much for everything you're doing.
It's everybody. Everybody
I
here works so
I
hard.
know, I know.
It really,
Oh, I know,
and our speakers
I
also. We really suck so much
I
time.
know,
It's really, it's
I
not me. It's
know,
really them.
and I know, but I've met you
Yes.
throughout the
Yeah.
COVID stuff, so I mean, obviously, I would thank
Yeah.
everybody here,
I
but
know.
at some point in private, we can
Yes.
touch
Yes.
base real
Yes.
quick because I want to ask how I can help and all
Yes.
that. But I've got two very specific questions, maybe three, and if any of this should be discussed, in private. But for example, so there's, obviously these spaces do a tremendous amount of good just for people to, have the comfort. And I was in New York on 9/11. So I was a New Yorker from 96 until recently. The thing that I'm not in New York City now, but I do know in many ways from what I've heard from New York, there's a few things going on that I think we really, learned from 9/11, which of course really I found very disappointing during all of the COVID stuff, but that's neither here nor there. I was wondering if there's anyone out there who is or has thought about finding ways to communicate, specifically to sort of the, how do I put this? There's so much bullshit that's being, you know, taking up so much time from people whom are influential in, the whether it's politics or, we all happen to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and the narrative is so quickly being pivoted from what we all saw
Right.
happen,
Right. We spend
right?
hours, yeah, going through
To
this.
Yeah, I know, but no, but what I wanted to know is, are there any resources, because I'm trying to put together just some things that can be easily
Yes. Yes.
disseminated, just to say, like, for
I'll send you a
example,
package. Send to me. I'll
like
send.
that'd be great, and I'm going to try to get that out there, because the number of times I have heard the same narrative being used over and over again, and to me, I know soak realism when I see it, right? And it doesn't do any good for any of us to try to push back on that without, I don't know, it's starting to like kind of chisel down to where we've got to get to what matters. But also, meanwhile, in addition to that, I know that there's a lot of people, both, from all walks of life, Jew, Gentile, Americans, people that would like to know how they can participate in various, like, I've had people ask me about fastings. I've had people, people want to be,
So the Catholics today asked for a
and
day
it's
of
like,
fasting. So those of us that fasted.
right.
So
Well, I understand.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just saying that a lot of people are missing a lot of the things going
Yes.
on. So if anybody knows of any of those resources, because I get asked about it and I often don't know what to say. And
Okay.
there's one last thing,
I know
which
what to
is
do.
also, if anyone out there has gotten any found any sense of, because what you guys do here with information is so tremendous. But I think also for a lot of people whom are shocked and struggling with what they've recently seen and heard coming from, people that were, it's sort of this, there's a trauma, the trauma that we're getting from this divisiveness is a feature and not a bug, right? So finding ways to have people dealing with that specifically, and not just doing it, with writing and typing or even communicating, like finding ways, whether it's a Zoom or a phone call or whatever, because it will make a big difference. And I know this only from what we went through in 2001. And I appreciate and understand why you say what you do, Stealth, about going to places. But I will say that the My
So
worry
let me tell
is,
you what I've been telling people, especially those of the
yeah,
Jewish faith, but it's for Christians as
yes,
well. I've asked every
thank
single
you.
person and woman, if you're a woman and you don't like candles, light candles on Friday night.
Of
If you don't
course,
know how to do
of
the
course.
blessing, Google it. It's easy. For men, put on tefillin or start to
Yep,
go and do mikvah in the morning or pray in the morning or volunteer at a Jewish orphanage or at a women's shelter and give clothes and be of service and do mitzvot, which are just good deeds. If
yep.
if if you're and I think I played a video from Rabbi Menace Friedman on my feed. I don't know if you heard it last night, but I think increase your moral standards of your own personal life. I think that is the most important thing
Absolutely.
that people can do in America. And I think Rabbi Menace Friedman said it perfectly. It was a what's the word? I can't think right now, but
It's I meant it in more of
like
a way of because I see so many of our friends, especially the people who are fighting and for freedom together,
yeah.
that are feeling, and I mean it in a way of like,
Well,
if you ever hear of a resource that I can
yeah,
try to
yeah, yeah.
compile
So
it
you know
and
what,
just start getting things where
Angela,
people can connect with one another.
Angela, you there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm
Can
listening.
you
I'm
make a
listening.
group chat with me, you, her, Carolina, Monica, and Sphinx? I have an idea. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Please, thank you.
Okay.
And I'm going to run, but also, Stealth, when you have a moment, I want to just ask you privately a little bit about stuff that has come out of one, and because my fear is that something could accidentally be Lashon Hara, and that is the last thing I want.
Spunem
Okay,
omenește
that makes any sense?
ce subject este vorbești.
It's yes, God, I don't even know if I can say it, if I remember this. Dice Israel nu pot este akuma. Shapiro was, talking about it, and I'm trying to find a way to address it because it's all over some pretty influential. Here's what I'm trying to say. What's shocking to me, and I don't know where it's rooted, but so many people who come from the media, old school, because me having come from New York, I know a lot of these people. They are so. I don't know how it happened. My suspicion is it's essentially just rooted in forced conversion. That is what this theology does. That is, overtaking all everything. And the problem I'm seeing happening is that for many of us, we didn't know, and by that I mean Jews, we don't know exactly how to address something when it sounds authoritative. And it's something that I'm trying to figure out who to speak to, or maybe even if there's some way that those of us who are trying to very quickly gain knowledge we would need on how to handle something, if they can come together to find someone who could, even to think of it like a mini, very hot, quick yeshiva, essentially,
Oh, ok,
like
da,
very
da, da.
quick.
Ok, eu înțeleg,
Do you
da,
see what
eu
I'm
înțeleg
saying?
ce tu spui acum. Da.
Mulțumesc,
Ok,
mulțumesc.
nicio problemă.
Da,
Vorbim mai
mulțumesc.
târziu. Mersi. Ok.
Mulțumesc, eu te iubesc.
Ok.
Mulțumim.
Și eu la fel. Ok.
Mulțumesc.
Hey, I do have a little bit of breaking, I guess. The chief IDF spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, has confirmed that we have recorded conversations from Gaza that prove the Islamic Jihad's responsibility for the blast at the hospital in Gaza. So it is confirmed that they have recording. I think they were going to release it, so I'll wait and
Yeah,
keep
we've been
looking.
waiting for that release, right? It's been now many
Yeah,
hours.
I
Okay.
so. Yeah.
That's a conversation between Islamic Jihad militants, terrorists.
Yeah, I put it in the nest. So it's a recorded conversation from Gaza that prove Islamic Jihad's
So
responsibility.
is that the guys sitting around their computers on a couch? Because I have that from like this morning already released to me. Is that the one?
This just came out,
Well,
so I don't think so.
Okay, let me go and yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
go
send
double
you.
check.
Yeah,
But
I'll send Adrian
okay.
and Em that video too, so they can look at it. Delta, go lightly. I'm warning you.
Yeah, because you're kind of the last word of the
Well,
day, so don't ruin our mood.
yeah,
Oh, I mean, don't always go
yeah,
lightly.
right. Yeah, it's a wrecking
No,
ball.
I
A
was gonna
wrecking ball.
say I heard that Iran. I don't know if y'all talked about this, but I heard Iran said that Israel's out of time and they're fixing to launch an alliance of 6 militias or something.
That was like 500 hours
Yeah,
ago.
but it's okay. Yeah.
Well, what I think they'll do is they'll do a probe attack with them and see how chewed up they get, and then I think they will commit in full to an attack.
It's breaking.
Hmm?
I'm sorry, but it looks like we've got a correspondent saying, and we need to dig deep now because it's breaking. The
The
U.S.
U.S. Army
North.
supports an attack targeting forces in Iraq using drones. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, Reuters reported it. Reuters just reported it. This is breaking.
Yep.
Breaking.
I hate to keep tooting my own horn, but
Yeah, we
it
know,
will
Delta.
be
You said
a
it. You said it.
full-fledged war. Full-fledged. I think
Hold on.
Iran.
Delta, stop talking for a second. What did you say, Angela?
Yes.
Why
U.S.
do you
troops.
gotta be a bitch?
Hold on. Oh shoot! Because God. Oh, there's a brilliance inside of that completely disgusting rawness, and shit, we lost it because he said,
Guess
"I
what?
know,
Guess what? He's
I
out.
know,
I don't give a
I
fuck.
know, I know." No bad. Oh gosh. I know.
No. It's done. I'm out. I have had so many complaints about that
I
guy.
know.
I'm done
I
with
know.
him.
I know. But
That's why I was kind of trying to talk over him. Sorry, I was just trying to get
Also,
to the news.
unfollow me. I don't know why these people never unfollow me.
Everybody loves you. That's why. Okay. So can Adrian or M, did you see this going on? This attack in Iraq of the U.S. forces?
Yes, I've been tracking it for the last hour.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Darn it. So
Can you just repeat what she said? I didn't hear.
U.S.
Drone attack.
on U.S.
Forward
forces
drone
in
attack.
Iraq, which are it's most likely
Forward drone
Iranian.
attack.
That's what I'm feeling. So, yeah. Darn it.
And
You guys,
here's the
Em
problem
or
with
Adrian, you guys, go ahead.
here's the problem with Iraq. It's completely in control of the Islamic Republic. The head of the Badr organization, Hadi Al-Miri, he's been in and out of the government. I don't think I can say this on here, but if I had a chance, I'd rub him out. But I said it. In any event, he is the key coordinator, so he can pull together Badr. They get all the intelligence on Americans, where they are, and this drone attack was supposedly targeting American officials, not just a base. This was targeting officials. So I don't know who those officials were.
Matisiao, where have you been?
Well, I'm trying to use my time. I'm trying to use my time for more effective work than just joining spaces with. I'm not discussing this specific one, but I sick and tired of spending my time talking to anti-Semites around the world who justify Hamas brutal murder, and if people do not condemn that, there's nothing I can say. Taking into consideration that whatever is happening in Gaza can link to any other place in the world. And whoever doesn't understand that we're dealing with like fanatic, extremist people who have sick ideology, and it's in everybody's interest to wipe them out. Whoever doesn't understand that, I don't think I can do much to help. So I just don't want to
Thank
waste
God
time.
that's not our space. We hear our
Understood. Yeah, I
yeah.
just, I'm not, as I said, I'm not,
I understand. I understand.
yeah. I just,
I just want to make sure everybody in your family is okay.
yeah, we all fine, but it was very traumatic event, and I have to admit that even myself, being a right winger, before I was born and growing up in a right winger family, grandson of Etzel. Maybe you can explain what Etzel stands for. I did not take in consideration that they can do such a brutal event. It's way above. It was way above my imagination. We're still shocked.
That means that you are a decent human being, and but I I didn't know why it hasn't happened. For me, I didn't understand why they hadn't done it. So uh, I assume the worst of humanity and I hope for the best. So you prepare for the worst. And I think, Matizia, when you saw the civil unrest and you saw the rhetoric around Netanyahu and you saw what the IRGC was doing and you saw the new administration and you saw what happened in Afghanistan and you saw the threats and you saw you were in my spaces, 6.5 billion, and all the spaces I did about the IRGC. And I was coming to all the Israeli spaces, right? Talking to you guys right before Ramadan. I saw things escalating. I was surprised it hadn't happened before, to be honest. I'm really surprised. So when you control your police and your military from defending the land for the last 15 years because you want to be more liked in the world. People don't care about countries that are liked. People care about state actors that are feared but are rational. So you can still be feared and be rational. You don't have to be liked and be rational. So you can't hug a terrorist away, which we've clearly seen. And when you disarm a people of a country, this is what happens. And so this is the beacon to America and to any other Western society that has, like Australia, has more illegal guns on the streets. So the good people remove them, and the worst of the worst have them in Australia. And I've been saying this every day. I'm sorry. I've been warning everybody in this country, and nobody listens to me. And I've warned everybody in Israel, nobody listens to me. So why do we have to learn through the pain? My friend below, Rooftop Deplorable, is of the same ilk as me. He's down there. He's very funny. I'm going to bring him up in a second. But this is the pain. You cannot have an unarmed Jewish population. We saw what that was like in Germany and in Poland. And if you guys forgot, then I don't know what to say. It's just
Well, yeah,
It's
I
very
must
as
admit,
high
I must admit
honestly,
that
as much innovation and as high IQ that we are, we have a right to also have situational awareness and tactical training. Period. Full stop. For the rest of this eternity.
An obligation, more than a right, an obligation. Yeah.
obligation, fully agree. Well, I highly recommend it to follow Tzvi Yechazkeli.
Oh, can you send me
He made
his URL so I can follow? Thank
sure,
you.
sure, and he made a TV sitcom about Islam in Europe. Tzvi Yechazkeli was able to learn all the Muslims' traditional behavior, and he went deep inside mosques around Europe. And his main conclusion is that we have to understand the mentality and the cultural gaps. And unfortunately, the world and even Israelis do not understand the mentality and cultural gap and the mindsetting of the Arab world.
That's because
And
people have
that's the
become
key.
secular. And the more you become secular, it's very hard to understand things.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a lot. I don't know if it's if he made some stuff in English, but I think it's essential to listen to his message. And yeah,
I think
I'll try
no,
to
but
find.
the difference is the more society becomes altruistic, they assume that others are the same, and that's not it. So again,
I think
yes, go ahead,
Intel
Intel.
thinks
Go
is
ahead.
going to say something.
Yeah, I had some breaking news in relation to the whole hospital thing. I did post in the nest. The IDF did release a drone video of the hospital in Gaza before and after footage showing the damage. Surprise, surprise, there's no craters. Partial fire damage on the two buildings and 12 cars that were damaged by a fire. And that's
So
it.
Intel, I
So
shared
what do you think about these?
your thread and
Go
I
ahead.
read it off for you to everybody when you weren't here, just so you know.
Yeah, it just shows, surprise, surprise, the government media office in Gaza and the government ministry of health for Gaza, which is just Hamas, because they're doing a false call to authority, because they know people are more apt to trust something called the government media office than Hamas spokesperson. Probably shouldn't be trusted at their word. And their whole narrative of 1,000 dead people is completely false. The damage here is quite clear, very minimal, and was not caused by a bomb.
I want to piggyback on that real quickly. I mentioned before that there were 2 drones targeting. I said U.S. officials. That was completely wrong. It's the Al Assad Air Force Base where a lot of our troops are housed. They're both intercepted, and I need to make sure that the correct information is getting put
They
out
hit
there.
a base?
They were
They
targeting base. They were targeting base.
targeted the Al Assad Air Force Base, where a lot of our troops are stationed in Iraq. Well, what we have there.
As weird as it sounds, that's slightly less serious than had they been doing a political assassination attempt.
Absolutely.
I wait. I don't understand. Say that again. What does that mean?
His earlier belief was that they were targeting some, I guess, politicians, maybe people in the green zone. I don't know what you were referring to, but and now it appears they had targeted a military base, which politically speaking, geopolitically speaking, is slightly less significant.
Really?
And obviously they can, because they
they've
can defend
already
it.
hit 70 of our targets inside Iraq and Syria, and we've only responded 4 times, so this isn't going to be any different.
Yeah, and they can obviously the U.S. military people can defend themselves and did, and it seems like they thwarted the attack, right, Adrian?
That is correct. That is correct. And my misreporting on that shows it's very late on the East Coast for me.
No worries. So I think we'll go to Brianna for the last person of the day.
Rooftop. But go ahead, Rihanna.
Sorry, I didn't see Rooftop. I'm sorry. Sorry, Rooftop. Brianna first. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, guys. Nice to see everybody. Hey, just out of curiosity, do we know what time the strike happened? Because I was kind of rebuilding a timeline.
So I want you to go to
Do we know
Intel
what time it
Schizo's.
was?
Which one, in Iraq or in Palestine?
The
So I
hospital.
want you to go to
Gaza.
Intel Schizo's page. He's got an entire thread and it's time stamped, and it'll just save you a lot of time. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll keep it brief. So if one of the timestamps is off I think it was the Al Jazeera feed, and that had it at like 7 something. The messages, I think that camera might have, like, its software might have been off, because if you go off of like when everyone started posting about it on social media, it was closer to 8:30. And Hamas Telegram channels posted at 8:04 p.m. that they were launching R-160s at Haifa, and then they posted it again about a minute before they then did a follow-up post saying, "Oh my God, the Zionists bombed the hospital," and that falls within like the same general time frame that we see the multiple videos, the security camera footage, the Al Jazeera feed, and I think the Reuters feed, and then the video on the ground behind the security, or like the chain link fence. So it was around 8:24 ish when all that started posting up.
Is that Eastern Standard Time, or what time was that on the East Coast?
Local time, so Eastern Standard Time, that would have been like 1:23-ish, like around 1:20.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. The first report is at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the reason why I bring this up is because the Biden administration, there were like various posts, right, around 8 o'clock this morning, saying that Biden would be flying in, and various posts saying that Israel would see like kind of like a soft ceasefire until after he left. Various people praising President Biden for creating time for Israel to cool off during this time, and mentioning sort of parts of that sort of soft ceasefire, if you will. And I thought that was very interesting, because the IDF has said that they were not engaged in airstrikes during that time. And so
Yeah,
that's what made me kind of.
It's all written up, and I have it on my feed as well. So I'll tell you it very succinctly. He was supposed to meet with a boss, and a boss canceled. So he rerouted from Jordan and then went to Israel. So things got changed up because of that. And whatever agreement they were trying to do or whatever, it didn't work out with the boss. He came to Israel. And then we have all the time stamping between my feed and Intel's feed regarding how there was no bombing at all from the Israel side, zero. They tried to bomb Haifa, allegedly, but really it went onto themselves. And between me and him, we went through it extensively in terms of posts, for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to come in late on that. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Okay, Rooftop.
Hey, Stealth. Good to hear you back online. Sounds like you got a sore throat there.
I just haven't been sleeping. It's been 9 days.
Losing your voice. You need to rest up, get some hot liquid or something. But I heard that you'd been taken off the air. Someone said that your account was off.
I've
so
had
I was so happy to
cyber attacks on my account, and so we had to send some communication over to Scotland Yard. Just that's it. GP was running that, and he's been running all the cyber attacks against our space, against phones, a lot of people's phones, including Charlie's has another account, also his. But our phones were being turned off and on many times. That's all I have to say.
Yikes! I'm so sorry that you're undergoing this attack.
A little
You're
Pegasus
a valuable source of
action never hurt
information.
anybody. So.
But yeah, I appreciate you. I have to make sure I can check your feed.
I know.
To make sure I know what's going on. And so I like what you had to say earlier about the history of disarmed populations. You don't just have to take it from the 1992 rooftop Koreans or China or anywhere in the world where people have been disarmed. And I swear I'm not sponsored by IWI, but if you would like to support Israeli weapons industries, the Tavor X95 shoots really well. I've been training on that. The Galil Ace Gen 2, 4 chamberings. You pick, and if you like ARs, the IWI Zion is great if you just want an AR platform.
You inspired me to get one not too long ago, so thank you very much.
I'm glad. Now you're going to have to spend on the ammo and get out there and practice.
You promised to take me practicing again.
No, you're invited. Okay, we're going to have to arrange that.
So if you ever can't get a hold of me, the one person in the world is Carolina that can possibly find me, so.
I'm in touch with her. Sounds good.
Okay.
But I'm glad you're back on. Stay strong, and thank you so much for doing all that you do. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
I don't have a funny joke, so
your
thank
whole
you.
Focus should be on Gavin Newsom for me. When I'm busy on this, you should be focusing on Gavin Newsom, and if you're not, then I'm going to be very upset with you.
My impression of him is getting a lot better. I don't have the exact voice, but I have the attitude and the cadence.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll work on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stealth.
God bless
appreciate
you.
it.
I love you.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Matisiao, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to relate it to the previous person who spoke. I would appreciate if you can mention her name or her user. Brianna, are you still around?
Yeah, she's here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to Brianna, but it refers to pretty much everybody. I understood that the space is busy with the missile that fell on the Shifa hospital, and everybody expressed lots of concerns and worries and so on and so forth. It seems to me a little bit, how should I say it, double standard. Is anybody concerned about slaughtering like babies in their own homes?
You haven't been here, so you don't. It's been 22 hours a day. So what she's doing is we're trying to create a counter narrative to the lies that are being spun by certain very, very large.
I appreciate that. But even if mistakenly missile fell on Shifa. By the way, Shifa Hospital is the source for all the, I don't know how should I call this, like it's not bunkers, rather it's like some sort of tunnels.
Tunnels. Yes,
Yeah. So, in French you said "à la guerre on comme la guerre." At war is like the war, right? If you can translate such a. And it seems to me a little bit hypocritic to be so concerned about the hospital. Nobody mentioned the fact that Barzilai in Ashkelon, Barzilai Hospital was bombed purposely.
Yep.
Yeah, it just a little bit seems to me, how should I call it,
So
hypocrites.
I'm
And
going to send you the 22 hours of
yeah,
video that we audio from the Twitter Spaces since last Friday night, and you're going to see what we've been doing. So there's a portion of people just volunteering are fighting against the horrific narrative that's being spun that's causing an incitement to violence. I want you to go to GP's Twitter page. So Graham, maybe can somebody send Matisiao, because I don't want to touch my phone because it'll send him those links from GP so he'll realize. But we've done probably the most work any human has done on any Twitter space or social media anywhere, including the IDF, to counter those narratives. And people are volunteering 22 hours out of their days doing this. And we're not working and we're not sleeping and we're not eating. And it's been intense. So that's why I said, where have you been? So you need to stay in our spaces so you can catch up and we need you. I need you for many things. So we have shifts. We have the Israelis coming in. We have intelligence. We have U.S., Israeli intelligence, European intelligence at every level. So it's been a rotating thing. So believe me, there's no I know Brianna very well. There's no hypocrisy in our space. We know exactly the targeted thing that's occurring against, and the narrative is very strong, and it's going to turn even stronger. And not as it's causing social unrest all over the world, but it's an incitement to violence and terrorism, and nobody needs that. So we are working very hard, I promise you. And we have spent hours upon hours discussing the atrocities, and we've posted videos. And I personally have gone into very graphic detail that most people cannot believe I've said. Go ahead, please.
Matisiao, I sent you
well,
one of his posts by that gentleman that she's referring to, and you can check out some of his other
And
posts
just
on
go
his
to
page.
my
You'll find
feed
it very.
and you'll see everything we've been doing there. My feed and
well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate. Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead, M.
Yeah, and please come back. Please come back because we're doing this
No.
almost
Now
actually
I'm
every
gonna
day.
bug him to come to other spaces. So because we need him here to help us with some things. Actually, go ahead, Matizio.
Okay, I really appreciate your hard work. You unbelievable, incredible people, and you know, I mean, based on what I heard now, I think my comment was not to be said, and I
It's okay.
apologize for
It's okay.
that.
It's okay.
I just sick and tired of apologizing all day long for a mistaken which might have happened
Yeah.
while you're
Yeah.
dealing with like mass murderers. That the Holocaust looks how should I call it, sterile as compared to what they've
Yep.
done.
This
And
space will never
Yeah, you
apologize
haven't heard
for
an
mass
apology. The
murderers
only
and
time
rapists.
I apologize is when I curse at everybody and in my one of my rants, and then I apologize. I feel very guilty. So you'll see. I am I am considered the to the right of the right of the right. I'm falling off to Antarctica at this point in the space. Most of the men I've humiliated on here for not being aggressive enough. So 1 second. Go ahead, Em.
Yeah, I don't think you need to apologize, Mathis. You actually made a very good point. La guerre, c'est la guerre. War is war. And the party that decided to start this attack did not calculate properly. And the party that is responding to it, well, they are conducting themselves to the highest possible standards of the laws of armed conflict. I have no reason whatsoever to believe what statements coming out of Hamas and to doubt the statements coming out of the IDF, because the IDF is showing all the evidence on the table. It's a media operation. It's an info up from the get-go. The area that Intel Schizo pointed out in the video and the drone video that has just been released shows that the failed missile hit a car parking area. There's no way 500 people died there. And with all due respect, if they are under so much stress and pressure, and they are running out of water and electricity and medical supplies, well, they had the time to stage a press conference next to bodies in body bags that they probably brought out of the morgue of the hospital, or the cooling units that they are using right now to store the bodies of the people who are sadly dying because of what you said, Matt. La guerre, c'est la guerre. And that's why the responsibility lies with the party that started all this. Hamas instigated this, and they didn't calculate that they will bring about retaliation against the civilian population in Gaza. And they didn't do anything. They didn't take any precautions to safeguard them against what's to come. And they took the liberty to decide on their behalf that it's the right time to launch an attack against Israel, and it's okay for the collateral. You don't need to apologize at all. La guerre, c'est la guerre. It actually sums up everything that we have been seeing since the attack. Thank you, Mattis.
Thank you, guys. I have to start my day. I apologize, but
Okay.
I will try to join maybe
Don't worry, I'll
later.
bug you.
Thank you.
I'll bug you. Thank you. תודה, מתתיהו.
And still, so
Yes.
גם אני מדבר עברית as well, but I thought you would know.
חפיף,
I
ממש
just
כמו ישראלי,
this
או
is
לא?
Rafi. For some reason, my screen doesn't show who's talking.
It's
Is it
M.
Rafi?
M is the one who's speaking.
Ah, I see. Okay, very good.
It's a bit rusty. It's a bit rusty. I haven't used it in years, but it's a bit rusty.
בטח. Of course, I know you spoke Hebrew. Like, you still don't know me by now, M? Okay. How many
Trying.
hours? Good luck. Adrian, go ahead.
Yeah, and the one thing I just want to say, and I'll put this with an exclamation point, and why I keep on coming back here is there's no moral relativism here. We understand this. But the most important reason, the reason why I come back is because we're here to expose the propaganda machine and to fight back against this counter narrative that is so well financed, so well organized on multiple levels. And I think that's part of our duty, and we find that as part of our duty is coming to this room to destroy those narratives and show no. We all know the words can't describe what happened. Okay, they just can't. But we want to expose not just the Hamas narratives, but the Ilan Omar narratives, etc. So we strive for the truth, and when we're wrong, we admit it, but we fact checked everything from since I've been in here.
So,
Amen. I think that's. Go ahead.
I was going to post a video as we leave, one of my videos. So just 1 second. Hold on. Go ahead.
Can you also check your DM real quick?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
I want to mention, I'm sure you've talked about this, but if you click on links on rogue sites, then that's how they can collect your IP address and how they can hack your phone. You're probably aware of that, but I just wanted to mention that because I heard you talking about being hacked stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you about it in the DMs.
Okay.
Shall we take a little break?
Yeah. I hold on 1 second. You guys are sending me a lot of not just our team, but I'm getting a lot of OSINT stuff and okay. Any consensus on what's going on in Syria by any chance?
I would just want to thank everyone. Thank you, Stealth and Charlie and everyone. Adrian, I have to hop off. I have to go to the office. So I'll see you again soon, and hopefully I'll have more news for you to share. But thank you for everything you're doing. Yeah, shalom, everyone. Hopefully we'll just make it to the other side out of this, and the righteous people will prevail.
You learned one new thing today, Em, about me. אני מדברת רומנית.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Right. You're welcome.
All right. Ciao.
Bye. Okay. Let's do this.
One of the 613.
Okay, so we're closing out now. The back channels can hold on 1 second. Hold on.
Do you want to say the back channels can go to hell? Is that what you wanted to say?
I don't want to say anything.
Don't say anything. Play us a short inspirational message, and then let's have some sleep collectively.
It's not inspirational.
Oh, it's not going to be the Rabbi Manis? I thought it was going to be Rabbi Manis.
Listen, I'm going to go to bed. I'm kind of mad about that
situation.
No one who comes up or is listening may call any one of the speakers, the hosts, the co-hosts, any
derogatory
names.
Period. Full stop.
Yes, you will get booted
and
immediately.
You will not come back.
That is unacceptable.
He's done. I told him. I warned him.
Okay. All right.
100%.
I didn't until he said it. It was so quiet, and then all of a sudden I was like, "Oh boy, that's it."
It's unacceptable behavior. We're here to talk about Israel and That not going to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to push back, but you can use respectful words and just push back in a normal way. You don't have to use. You shouldn't. It's not acceptable to use that kind of language against people. Do you want to play something stealth, or? I feel like we're in suspended animation.
Yep. Phone totally attacked. Turned off. Turned back on.
So let's rug pull it, so to speak, and then start again shortly.
Okay.
Or in a few hours.
Thank you guys very much. There was I did ask somebody to come up who's a financial expert, but I don't think he wants to speak for his own personal reasons. But I did ask him to come up because he could analyze what's happening right now, but I think he's not comfortable. So
everyone, if you can, even though we're ending the space now and we're going to continue in the morn, please retweet one more time, repost one more time so that people can hear the recording. Go ahead.
Just I want to say something about the attack on your phones and your Twitter accounts. It's happened to me before you guys, before you, one day before you, and they tag my name on Twitter with some post from their accounts, and after that, how I get rid from them. I report all of their posts that they tag my name on them, and my Twitter account. I report all of them with the, like you said before. You said do it with harassment, abusement. I do it anyway, even if it's not in harassment. Do it anyway, okay? So I did all of them, like 20 posts. 20 posts, they tag my name on them, and stealth and other people account. I sent her a copy as well, a picture, to see how I how I report them, and at the same time I did one more thing is because they ride on your Wi-Fi, so you turn off your Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi from the phone. Turn it off, because if you still turn it on, if you turn on the Wi-Fi, okay, they will ride on your phone like a donkey. They will ride on your phone. Like someone ride on the donkey or on the horse. He can guide it wherever what they want, wherever they want. Okay, so turn off the Wi-Fi, and after that, what you're gonna do? Because if you're gonna turn off the phone, it's not gonna work. When you're gonna turn it on, it's gonna happen again. Turn off the Wi-Fi, and after that, call your provider, your internet provider. Call them to restart your modem. They can do it from their side. If they didn't allow you to do it, if they didn't do it from their side, you can do it from your own side, okay, by turning off the modem, and after that, just wait like 1 minute or 2 minutes, okay?
Yeah, resetting it.
And after that, turn it on again. It's gonna restart the signal that you receive from your provider. They can only attack you by the Wi-Fi. You know why? Because the Wi-Fi is gonna give them fast access to your phone. It's not from, they cannot attack you from this, what they call it, the SIM card. They cannot attack you from the SIM card, because the SIM card is going to be, sometimes there is no signal, no surface, or no reception, so it's going to be bad for them. So only the Wi-Fi is going to be fast for them to access your phone, to see what you are, where you are going, what you are using, what pictures you are opening in your phone. So just after you report their post on Twitter, do this. turn off the Wi-Fi and restart your internet Wi-Fi. And I need to say to you, shalom, hello, and welcome back. I see your account, AB, it's working. The other one as well.
Inshallah.
No, I see it is
Alhamdulillah.
working because
Yes,
when
yes.
they
It's finally
when they
working.
attack
Finally
you, I
working.
didn't see it. It's disappear even from my text messages.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but now it's I see it in my text messages. It's over there.
Osam, I think your dog needs a walk. That's what I'm
Yeah,
sensing.
I know. Yeah, right. Okay, guys.
I think your doggy needs a walk. Take the dog for let the dog pee.
I just had to share this important thing with you guys. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Shukran. Thank you. Ms. Stealth?
I put something real fast before we go. Unfortunately, it looks like there are still Hamas terror cells roaming in the Negev region and waiting to come out of their hiding spot and attack civilians, according to an assessment made by the IDF on Wednesday morning. That's according to the Jerusalem. And then according to I-24 News, the U.S. reportedly they thwarted the drone attack on its troops in Iraq. So those attacks were thwarted.
Yeah, we got into that.
Okay.
Thankfully it was to no success on those bastards' part.
And with that, I feel like we should end.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
You know, okay. Thank you, everybody. Gosh, thank you, everybody, so much for coming tonight. We'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Continue telling the truth. Continue telling the truth to everybody.
Yeah. Please,
Amen.
and go follow everybody and share the audio. Listen from the morning, and then also Sphinx ran on before me the morning shift also, and we had phenomenal space on there as well. And then I flipped over and I started it. So I know it's a lot of content and it's many hours, but it's worth it. So that's all I have to say. Okay, guys. Good night. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
so much.
everybody of all the staff and everybody, and Monica and Sphinx and Adrian, all the people that contribute. You know, nobody's getting paid here. Nobody does this for any reason but volunteer, and that's
Thank
it.
you.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.